Chapter 3962. Because of Meng Jueguang's love letter, this miss obviously hated Lin Yi to death. Why did she suddenly show up and take the initiative to save Lin Yi? The death of Meng Jueguang was a big blow to Su Lingchong. Now because of Lin Yi, not only did he lose Ma Jian, but he also suddenly found that Miss Shangguan's attitude began to become unclear with Lin Yi. Such continuous blows, even young Master Su could not help but be a little confused. Shangguan Laner had always been young Master Su's exclusive property. No one could touch her. Anyone who had a little evil intention would immediately be killed. As for Lin Yi, a new bumpkin from the secular world, the gap between him and Miss Shangguan was basically the gap between a toad and a swan. He thought that this kind of thing could not pose any threat to him, but he did not expect that the most impossible thing to happen now inexplicably showed a trace of bad signs. This was related to his future plan, and even related to the future strategy of the Su family for the next 100 years. He could not afford to take it lightly. Su Lingchong suddenly panicked. Even the important matter of competing with the South Sky Gate for the position of the steward of the sky-reaching pavilion was temporarily put aside and mobilized people to investigate it. He must find out as soon as possible what had happened between Shangguan Laner and Lin Yi during this period. After all, Su Lingchong was the young master of the Soaring Sky Pavilion. If he really wanted to know something, it would be a piece of cake. There were very few things in the three great pavilions that could escape his eyes and ears. In the short span of a day, the truth had already come to light. As expected, the information came from Kong Mingming. Although Su Lingchong also wanted to start the investigation from Shangguan Laner, this miss's level was too high. Unless he did it himself, others could not even say a word. There was no way to find out what this miss had done before. It was easier said than done to find clues from her. Besides, who dared to investigate her? They were all people who were protected by the North Island elders. Even Ram Jia did not dare to investigate them. Therefore, in the end, Su Lingchong could only pin his hopes on Lin Yi. Even though Meng Jueguang was dead and his control over the newcomers of Blue Cloud Pavilion was greatly weakened, it was still much easier than directly investigating Shanghai Laner. Even without Meng Jueguang, Su Lingchong still had a lot of people he could use in the welcoming pavilion. From the pavilion master Hu Yunfeng to Kong Mingming and Zhong Pingliang. They were all his subordinates. However, after much consideration, the task still fell to Kong Mingming. After all, Hu Yunfeng was the pavilion master of the Welcome Pavilion. If she came out to investigate this kind of thing, it would be easy for others to get hold of her. It was not as convenient as Kong Mingming. After receiving Su Lingchong's letter, Kong Mingming did not feel it was troublesome. Instead, he was overjoyed. Now, because of the sudden death of Meng Jueguang, the newcomers of Blue Cloud Pavilion were completely in a state of disunity. It was the easiest time to be taken advantage of. His identity as a newcomer deacon might not have much of a deterrent effect, but if he had Su Lingchong's young master aura, that would be a big difference. After a group of newcomers of Soaring Pavilion clarified their backing background, they had already begun to move, intending to replace him. This was a cross-pavilion challenge. After he was crushed by Lin Yi in an almost humiliating way, his performance was particularly obvious, and it could even be said that he did not hide it. Kong Mingming was very clear. Even if he had Su Lingchong, the young master, behind him, it was no longer as easy as it was at the beginning to suppress the newcomers of Soaring Pavilion. After all, they had found their own strong backing. Just like Shi Yuda, they did not need to be afraid of him anymore. Since he could not suppress the newcomers of Soaring Pavilion, Kong Mingming could only settle for second best and think of ways to recruit subordinates from other places. Originally, because of Meng Jueguang, no matter how eager he was, he could not stretch his hands into Blue Cloud Pavilion. After all, Meng Jueguang was also Su Lingchong's subordinate. Wouldn't that be internal strife? But now, the situation was different. In his eyes, the newcomers of Blue Cloud Pavilion were like a piece of juicy meat, waiting for him to take a bite. Su Lingchong's order came at the right time. With that thought in mind, Kong Mingming went straight to the newcomer's cave abode in Blue Cloud Pavilion. He had a clear goal, which was to directly knock on the door and enter Murongzhen's wooden house. If he wanted to successfully take over Meng Juiguang's subordinates, he had to first subdue his two subordinates. One was Meng Tong, and the other was Murongzhen. As for Lin Yi, he did not even need to think about it. Now that Meng Tong was still seriously injured and was recuperating in seclusion, Kong Mingming's first target naturally became Murongzhen. Deacon Kong, it's my honor to have you visit my wooden house in person. Murongzhen purposely pretended to be a graceful lady in front of Kong Mingming. She smiled faintly, which was mesmerizing. As expected, her alluring beauty made Kong Mingming drool. He almost drooled, which made him look like a lecher. He had been at Heaven Stage Island for half a year, but he did not know what a woman was. Normal people really could not resist the temptation of a beauty like Murongzhen. This was especially true for Kong Mingming. When he was in the secular world, he could only stay with the ugly 11th, who was covered in scars, because of the Xianchen patriarch's power. He dared not touch other women. Fortunately, after being dazzled for a long time, Kong Mingming finally remembered the purpose of his visit. He forced himself to calm down and said, "Lady Murong, I'm here to ask you something. If you know anything, please enlighten me." "Please go ahead, Deacon Kong. I'll definitely tell you everything I know." Murongzhen bowed gracefully. This woman had always been used to it. Moreover, she was in her own wooden house, so she was wearing very little. Kong Mingming could not help but feel his heart heat up again. Kong Mingming licked his lips because his mouth was dry. He then said, "Lady Murong, you live in this wooden house. You should know what Lin Yi does every day and who he interacts with. So, do you know what happened between Lin Yi and Lady Shangwan?" "Lady Shangwan?" Murongzhen narrowed her eyes. There was only one person who could be called Lady Shangwan in the three great pavilions. Naturally, it was Shanghai Laner. For a moment, Murongzhen could not help but hesitate. Kong Mingming had asked the right person. Of course, she knew what happened between Lin Yi and Shanghai Laner. However, it was not convenient for her to tell Kong Mingming about what happened at the half-moon lake at the back of the mountain. Chapter 3963. Back then, she had merely said something about Shanghai Laner, and she was trampled from the sky to the ground. She was banished to a new bee in Blue Cloud Pavilion. If the incident at the half-moon lake at the back of the mountain was exposed, she would be dismembered by Su Lingchong's men. "Why? Is there something you don't want to tell me, Lady Murong?" Kong Xiaoming was a sharp thinker. One look at Murongzhen's face and he knew that there was more to it than meets the eye. If it was someone else, they wouldn't have known who Miss Shangwan was, but Murongzhen was from Chongtian Pavilion. There was no way he didn't know. Murongzhen was shocked. She quickly forced a smile and tried to smooth things over. "You misunderstood me, Officer Kong. I was just trying to recall if I've seen something like this before." "Oh. Does Miss Murong remember anything?" Kong Xiaoming continued to greedily size up the woman's alluring body as he asked calmly. "To tell you the truth, Steward Kong, I just remembered something. Back then, when I was taking part in the spiritual beast assessment at the back of the mountain, I happened to see Lady Shangwan appearing at the back of the mountain out of nowhere. She was alone too. She was attacked by the spiritual beast at that time, but Lin Yi showed up and saved her," Murongzhen said half-truthfully. This was the most beneficial thing for her. Not only could she remove herself from the matter, but she could also use the ambiguous relationship between Lin Yi and Shanghai Laner to add fuel to the fire between Su Lingchong and Lin Yi. No matter which one of them was at a disadvantage, it would not be a bad thing for her. Apart from that, she could also curry favor with Kong Mingming by revealing this matter. After all, Meng Jueguang was dead. Facing Lin Yi, who was getting more powerful by the day, she could not fight him alone. She had to find external help as soon as possible, and Kong Mingming was the perfect candidate. Firstly, although Kong Xiaoming's strength wasn't strong, he had Su Lingchong as his backer. Furthermore, he was an alchemist. His purpose wasn't to charge and break through enemy lines, so he didn't need to place too much emphasis on strength. Moreover, there was a blood feud between him and Lin Yi in the secular world. The enemy of the enemy was a natural ally. In Murongzhen's eyes, if she made good use of Kong Mingming, her role would not be any less than that of Meng Jueguang. Not only could she use him to deal with Lin Yi, but if the opportunity was right, she could even use him to climb up to Su Lingchong again. That would be the day she could make a name for herself. Lin Yi saved Lady Shangwan's life. This guy is so lucky. Kong Mingming was shocked and he could not help but feel envious. To be able to save Miss Shangwan's life was a blessing that couldn't be reaped even in a few lifetimes. If he used such a huge favor well, he would be able to achieve meteoric success in the future. Why didn't he, Kong Xiaoming, have such a good opportunity? That's right. I heard people say that Lady Shangwan hated Lin Yi. Now that she has such an opportunity, he might be able to turn over a new leaf and become a phoenix. Murongzhen added fuel to the fire. Fly up the branches and transform into a phoenix. Dream on. Kong Mingming was so angry that he gritted his teeth. However, he would not be fooled so easily. He asked in confusion, since Lady Murong happened to be there, why didn't you help him? It's better to do Lady Shangwan a favor than to let Lin Yi have all the glory, right? Murongzhen paused for a while, then she pretended to be weak and said, I am no match for Lin Yi. If I showed up at that time, I'm afraid he would kill me. I see. Kong Mingming looked at her suspiciously, but he did not continue to ask. This answer was enough to give Su Lingchong an explanation. Next, it was his own business. It depended on whether Murongzhen was sensible. If she was sensible, she would come to him obediently, and there would be nothing to say. Otherwise, when Kong Mingming reported, he would naturally add oil to the fire and let Murongzhen appear at the scene to see how she would die. It had to be said that Kong Mingming was quite a sinister person. He thought of a way to threaten Murongzhen in an instant. However, before Kong Xiaoming could speak, Murongzhen tactfully took the initiative and said, It's already dark. If Deacon Kong doesn't mind, why don't you stay in my wooden house for the night? Kong Mingming's eyes suddenly lit up. He rubbed his hands eagerly, but he pretended to be reserved and said, Lady Murong, we are a man and a woman alone. Is this appropriate? What's wrong with that? It's my honor that Deacon Kong is willing to do me this favor. Murongzhen said with her charming eyes. She stretched her hands to her waist and slowly untied her belt. Murongzhen knew very well that with her strength at the peak of the early stage of the building foundation realm, she could only intimidate ordinary newcomers. Her body was her biggest asset. Just like how she won over Meng Jueguang, if she wanted to hook up with Kong Mingming, going to bed with him was not only unavoidable, but it was also the most important first step. Only when it was on the bed, men were most likely to relax and let down their guard. When the pillow wind blew, any request would be easy. That was the so-called lust makes one lose his mind. Leaving aside the fact that Kong Mingming and Murongzhen were in cahoots, after a night of pleasure, a letter was finally sent to Su Lingchong's hands. I see. Su Lingchong read it carefully and he finally understood. Young Master Su had chased after Shangguan Laner for so many years, so he knew this young lady's temperament like the back of his hand. Although she had the temperament of a young lady, she was a person who would repay favors. If Lin Yi really did save her life, then no matter how much she hated Lin Yi, she would definitely help him if he needed her help at a critical moment. This could explain why she went to the law enforcement hall to help Lin Yi out of trouble. However, although he thought this way, young Master Su was still a little worried. What was Shangguan Lan's attitude towards Lin Yi? He had to ask her face to face. After all, the common scene of a hero saving a damsel in distress was too common. Even if the young lady didn't like the poor guy at first, it was not impossible for her to change her attitude and fall in love with the poor guy after he saved her life. Su Lingchong had to be careful. Well. Faced with Su Lingchong's question, Shangguan Lan tilted her head, and suddenly said with a smile, "As you said, I don't want to owe him a favor, so I naturally have to help him. Is there anything else?" Su Lingchong asked. Chapter 3964. No, I just want to show my concern. That brat Lin Yi is a good-for-nothing. This is something that is obvious to all in the Welcome Pavilion. I'm just afraid that junior sister Lan will be deceived by him and be sad at that time. Su Lingchong hurriedly smiled apologetically. If that's the case, then you can rest assured. This young lady's eyesight is very good, and I won't be easily deceived by some people. Shanghai Laner raised the corner of her mouth and said. She deliberately spoke very vaguely, but when it fell into Su Lingchong's ears, the meaning was quite clear. That was, this young lady's eyesight was very high, and it was impossible for her to be deceived by a poor newcomer like Lin Yi. Little did he know that this was only Su Lingchong's own wishful thinking. In the heart of Shanghai Laner, the meaning was completely opposite. That some people, in her words, were actually referring to him, young Master Su. That's good. Su Lingchong could be said to be closely involved in the situation. If the other party was changed to someone else, he probably would have noticed that something was wrong. Unfortunately, the person in front of him was Lan. In front of the goddess that men yearn for, their intelligence would always be in the negative, and young Master Su was no exception. This guy is really a big idiot. Shanghai Laner secretly laughed. She was happy to let this idiot Su Lingchong misunderstand by himself. The relationship between her and Lin Yi was a secret between her and Lin Yi, and she didn't want this annoying Su Lingchong to know. Oh, that's right, junior sister Lan, it has been decided that I will host your birthday banquet for you. If you have any ideas or requests, feel free to tell me. No matter what kind of wish it is, I will definitely do my best to help you realize it. Su Lingchong said with an excited face. Being able to host Shanghai Laner's birthday banquet meant that he had already obtained the preliminary approval of Shanghai Tianhua, or at least it was already tacit approval. This was the first step to becoming the son-in-law of Shanghai Tianhua, and to Su Lingchong, its significance wasn't the slightest bit inferior to fighting for the position of manager of the Skysoar Pavilion. With this opportunity, not only could he stabilize his relationship with Shangguan Laner, but he could also further improve his position in the three great pavilions. One had to know that this was a banquet for the upper echelons of the three great pavilions. Being the host of this banquet meant that one could directly communicate with all the upper echelons of the three great pavilions. There was no need to go into detail about the benefits. Unexpectedly, Shanghai Laner, the protagonist of the birthday party, was not interested in this. She waved her hand and said, "Do whatever you want. Anyway, it will not be the birthday party that I want. In the end, it will only become a power trade fair for you. I am not interested." A long time ago, Shanghai Laner still had all kinds of expectations and fantasies about the rare birthday party. But gradually, she found that it was completely different from what she had imagined. In the end, this was just a networking event held by the upper echelons of the three great pavilions in the name of her birthday party. As for whether she, the protagonist, was there or not, it didn't matter at all. If one had to talk about expectations, it was her only expectation for this birthday party. It could only be on Lin Yi. At that time, it was estimated that only this little junior brother would sincerely celebrate her birthday. Sure enough, she still had the temperament of a little girl. Seeing this, Su Lingchong smiled indifferently. Whether Shanghai Laner was happy or not, it was not important to him. The only important thing was that this time was an excellent opportunity for him to show his ability in front of all the upper echelons of the three great pavilions. He must not easily waste it. That Lin Yi. Do you want to let him attend this birthday party? Su Lingchong suddenly suggested. Ha! Shanghai Laner was slightly taken aback. She was very clear that her little junior brother Lin Yi was a thorn in Su Lingchong's side. Would this guy be so kind as to take the initiative to invite Lin Yi to attend her birthday party? Junior sister Lon, didn't you say that you want to return his favor? Originally, a low-level newcomer with no status like him is not qualified to attend such a high-class banquet. If you give him this opportunity, coupled with the help you gave him before, the so-called favor should be cleared, right? Su Lingchong explained with a sinister smile. Of course, this was not his real intention, but a flash of inspiration in his mind. He suddenly thought of a brilliant idea to deal with Lin Yi. No matter how tyrannical and abnormal Lin Yi's strength was, in the end, he was just a newcomer of Blue Cloud Pavilion. He could not be seen in public at all. If he invited Lin Yi to the birthday party where the upper echelons of the three great pavilions gathered, then let him make a fool of himself in front of all the upper echelons of the three great pavilions and take the opportunity to humiliate him. Wouldn't it be killing two birds with one stone to let Shanghai Laner see this guy's humble and embarrassing true face? Moreover, once Lin Yi left a negative impression in the eyes of the upper echelons of the three great pavilions, then even if he entered the inner sect in the future, there would be no future to speak of. Well, let's do it this way. Shanghai Laner immediately agreed readily. She was too lazy to guess what despicable intentions Su Lingchong had. Anyway, Lin Yi would definitely be able to solve it when the time came. Moreover, at the very least, there was still her, the main character of the birthday party, so it was impossible for Lin Yi to suffer a big loss. Okay. Su Lingchong smiled sinisterly and thought to himself, then wait to watch a good show. On the other hand, several days had passed since the death of Meng Jueguang, and the power struggle within the Welcome Pavilion had finally begun to take shape. Currently, the position that received the most attention in the Welcome Pavilion was the position of the third Pavilion Master. This important position originally belonged to Meng Jueguang, but because of Meng Jueguang's death, it suddenly became empty. Some people once thought that the former third Pavilion Master, Liu Bianren, might have a chance to make a comeback. After all, he was forced to leave by Meng Jueguang. Now that Meng Jueguang was no longer around, and the new members of the Blue Cloud Pavilion were in a state of panic, it was not impossible for the upper echelons to transfer the former third Pavilion Master back to stabilize the situation. However, today, an appointment came from within the Blue Cloud Pavilion, which made everyone's eyes pop out. Liu Bianren, the former third Pavilion Master who was forced to leave by Meng Jueguang, was now promoted to the position of the second senior brother in charge of the Blue Cloud Pavilion. This appointment was really beyond everyone's expectations. Even senior brother Ku Bai and Lin Yi, who were in the same faction as Liu Bianren, were so shocked that their teeth almost fell off when they heard it. The position of the second senior brother in charge of the Blue Cloud Pavilion in Blue Cloud Pavilion was the same position that Su Lingchong currently held in Soaring Sky Pavilion. Strictly speaking, it belonged to the same level as the third Pavilion Master of the Welcome Pavilion. Therefore, This change in Liu Bianren's position could be considered as a flat transfer. Chapter 3965. However, before this, Liu Bianren didn't have any foundation in Blue Cloud Pavilion. Even if he became the second senior brother supervisor of Blue Cloud Pavilion, it was still unknown how effective his authority would be. Perhaps in the end, he would end up in the same situation as when he was in the Welcoming Pavilion, where he would be taken over by others. Not to mention Liu Bianren's future prospects, he was already the second senior brother supervisor of Blue Cloud Pavilion, so it was naturally impossible for him to return to the Welcoming Pavilion. Apart from him, there was no suitable candidate that could satisfy all parties. As a result, the position of the third Pavilion Master of Welcome Pavilion was temporarily vacant. In addition, the other position left by Meng Jueguang's death, the eldest senior brother supervisor of Blue Cloud Pavilion, was finally revealed, and the successor was senior brother Bitter. There was no doubt about this. Senior brother Bitter had been the second senior brother supervisor of Blue Cloud Pavilion for many years under Meng Jueguang. He had enough experience, and now that he had broken through to the peak of the early stage of foundation establishment, his strength was also sufficient. More importantly, among the newcomers in Blue Cloud Pavilion, Lin Yi's group was undoubtedly the strongest. This was something that no one could stop. Anyone who wanted to sit in this position had to get Lin Yi's approval. To be able to get Lin Yi's approval, this person could only be senior brother Bitter. The higher-ups wouldn't have too many thoughts about this kind of low-level position. Naturally, stability was the main priority. Senior brother Bitter's appointment was unusually smooth from beginning to end. However, as a result, senior brother Bitter's original position as the second senior brother supervisor of Blue Cloud Pavilion was once again vacant. Just like the third Pavilion Master position, it was left unfilled for a long time. If Lin Yi wanted to, this position would probably fall into his hands in a minute. Unfortunately, he didn't like this insignificant new manager at all. Even if it was delivered to his door, he wouldn't want it. If Lin Yi didn't want it, then Xiao Ran, Xiao Hongkai, and the other subordinates of his were even more unwilling. After all, his underlings had unexpectedly become the senior brother supervisor. Was this reasonable? As for Meng Tong's group, they had some thoughts about it. Unfortunately, they didn't have the protection of Meng Jueguang, and it was a problem for them to protect themselves under the threat of Lin Yi. On the contrary, Murongzhen was a little excited. She had just recently gotten close to Kong Xiaoming. Senior brother Bitter, how's the situation? Lin Yi asked as they gathered together once more. He was naturally asking about Ku Bai Shixiang's situation after he became the head senior brother of the newcomers. Not bad. Now that Meng Jueguang has fallen, in addition to junior brother Lin's influence, other than a few newcomers, everyone else has taken the initiative to approach us. The situation is very good. The honest senior brother Bitter said with a rare excitement. Ever since Meng Jueguang's death, the Clear Cloud Pavilion's new disciples had been observing from the sidelines. It was only when he became the eldest senior brother in charge of the new disciples that they finally made their decision. After Chao Wu was the first to take the initiative, the other newcomers of Blue Cloud Pavilion also came over. The situation was indeed good. Senior Meng Jueguang had been working in Welcoming Pavilion for so many years, but he had always been a good-for-nothing. Usually, when he was wronged, he didn't even dare to make a sound. When had he ever felt so proud? For the first time in his life, Senior Meng Jueguang felt the prestige of being the senior brother supervisor. It was like the legendary surf singing, and it was all thanks to Lin Yi. A few. Who are they? Lin Yi raised his eyebrows. Murongzhen, Meng Tong, and two other newcomers. There were also two newcomers who seemed to have a connection with Kong Xiaoming from Soaring Pavilion. They are prepared to continue resisting us. Speaking of this, Senior Meng Jueguang couldn't help but worry. He wasn't a person who was good at fighting. If Lin Yi didn't help him, whether it was Murong Zhen or Meng Tong, it would be more than enough for him to suffer. They hooked up with Kong Mingming. Ha, they really don't give up. Lin Yi smiled indifferently. He didn't take it to heart. With his current strength, if he still took these people seriously, then he would be underestimating himself. A dog can't stop eating shit. I don't find it strange that they did this, but there was someone who surprised me. Xiao Hongkai said. Before he finished speaking, Xiao Ran had already said the name he was about to blurt out, Li Jingming. There was no sign beforehand. The fact that Li Jingming defected to them was shocking. It was strange to the point that it made people suspicious. The straightforward Xiao Hongkai couldn't help but say, "Boss, this guy isn't planning something, right?" Xiao Ran also nodded and said, from his point of view, defecting to us now is a choice forced by the situation. However, there is one thing that we must guard against. If he is faking his defection and has the intention of colluding with Meng Tong and the others, then there will be endless trouble in the future. How about I go test him? Xiao Hongkai was eager to give it a try. His so-called test was naturally a fight. It was simple, direct, and often very effective. People with ulterior motives would easily give themselves away when they fought with others. Lin Yi smiled noncommittally. He didn't open his mouth to explain for Li Jingming, nor did he come forward to stop it. Men don't get to know each other without fighting. No matter how much they talk, it's better to fight. Moreover, he also wanted to see Li Jingming's true strength. Anyway, no matter who was injured, Lin Yi was confident that he could heal them. It would be a mutual exchange between them. Seeing that Lin Yi acquiesced, Xiao Hongkai immediately cheered and went to find Li Jingming. He never refused to fight. Not to mention that even though his hostility towards Li Jingming wasn't as irreconcilable as his hostility towards Meng Tong, he could still clearly remember the scene of him being defeated by Li Jingming with a single move during the newcomer trials in the rear mountains during the first month he'd arrived at the Welcome Pavilion. He'd always taken that defeat to heart. After successfully building his foundation and his strength was reborn, Xiao Hongkai thought that he would have a chance to fight against Li Jingming. However, he didn't expect that in the 2-month-long newcomer challenge, he would just brush past Li Jingming. Although he successfully stepped on Meng Tong in the end, he still missed out on fighting Li Jingming. But now, the opportunity had finally come. Lin Yi had already acquiesced, so him challenging Li Jingming was also a rare opportunity for the other party to show his strength and fight for status. Presumably, he wouldn't reject it. In fact, it was just as Xiao Hongkai had expected. Li Jingming only paused for a moment after hearing the challenge, and after exchanging a glance with Lin Yi, he agreed without hesitation. Chapter 3966. Unfortunately, Lin Yi didn't intend to do so. It wasn't that he was intentionally suppressing him, but on the contrary, he was actually protecting him. Although Meng Jueguang was already dead, his formidable opponents like Su Lingqiong were still around. If they were to find out that Li Jingming was a mole from the beginning, Li Jingming would inevitably be pushed to the heart of the struggle and become a thorn in the side of Su Lingqiong and the others. His situation would be extremely bad. Li Jingming was well aware of this, but he didn't have any complaints. Instead, he was secretly grateful towards Lin Yi's intentions. After all, this was in line with his usual low-key style of doing things. However, low-key didn't mean that he really didn't have to do anything. Only those with strength could be called low-key, those without strength were called cowards. If everyone came to step on you and bully you, then there would be endless trouble. Therefore, Li Jingming was very clear that if he wanted to keep a low profile, then he had to reveal his strength at the right time to deter others. Xiao Hongkai, as the publicly acknowledged #1 general under Lin Yi, was a suitable opponent for Li Jingming who intended to establish his might. According to the rules of the Welcome Pavilion, this battle didn't involve the use of weapons or the help of spiritual pets, and it was a pure collision of strength. Originally, Lin Yi expected that the strength of both sides should be about the same. If they were to really go all out and fight each other to the death, then it would probably end in a situation where both sides would suffer heavy losses. He was even prepared to immediately appear and stop it if anything went wrong. In reality, it was indeed as Lin Yi expected at the beginning. After a few rounds, Qiao Hongkai and Li Xingming were evenly matched, and no one fell into a disadvantageous position. The battle between the two was so exciting and intense that even a mid-stage foundation establishment expert like Lin Yi couldn't help but sigh in admiration when he saw it. These two people were born with innate combat talent, and they were destined to never be mediocre. Once the time came, they would be like gold that had been washed out of the yellow sand, revealing their extraordinary brilliance. Lin Yi had long known that Li Xingming had successfully built his foundation, so he was not surprised. However, the others present had never seen Li Xingming's true strength. They had always thought that Li Xingming was only a heaven stage great circle expert and could not withstand a single blow from Qiao Hongkai. But he didn't expect that Li Xingming's strength had actually reached such a level without making a sound. He was actually able to fight evenly with Qiao Hongkai, a valiant general, and they were locked in a stalemate. However, this situation of being evenly matched did not last long. Very soon, everyone realized that they had once again misjudged. Li Xingming's strength was not only on par with Qiao Hongcai's, but he was also a powerful existence that was above Qiao Hongkai. After the time it took for a stick of incense to burn, Li Xingming suddenly ended the battle without warning when Qiao Hongcai's cold iron palm was running out of strength with a perfect sky frost fist. Striking after the enemy, the timing is just right. Well done. Lin Yi praised sincerely, and then took the lead to applaud. Following that, senior brother Ku Bai, Xiao Ran, and the others also applauded in appreciation. In fact, even Qiao Hongkai himself couldn't help but applaud. He wholeheartedly accepted his defeat today. Li Xingming, you're really strong. You used to be under the hands of a dirty bird like Meng Juiguang. From today onwards, no matter what others think, Qiao Hongkai will treat you as my brother. Qiao Hongkai said sincerely. He was not stupid. He could clearly feel that Li Xingming had shown mercy to him. Otherwise, he would at least be seriously injured. It was impossible for him to stand there as if nothing had happened. What's more, Qiao Hongkai seemed to be careless at first glance, but he had his own way of judging people, which was to judge people by their fists and feet. A person's fighting style could, to a large extent, tell a person's character. This was something almost instinctive. It was different from talking with flowery words, which could not be faked. From the battle just now, he could clearly feel that although Li Xingming was very patient, when it came to a head-on confrontation, this person's courage was not inferior to anyone. It could be seen that Li Xingming was born with a strong arrogance. Such a person would not like to play tricks, and he was not someone that a mere Meng Juiguang could really subdue. It was impossible when he was alive, and it was even more impossible when he was dead. Otherwise, with Li Xingming's strength, he should have stood up and summoned the wind and rain, instead of being low-key and invisible. Thank you. Li Xingming nodded heavily. Qiao Hongcai's simple words actually made his nose sour, and a dignified man almost shed tears. After being a spy under Meng Juiguang for so long, because he was destined not to see the light, he had gradually begun to get used to being alone, used to facing everything around him alone. Now that he was suddenly recognized, this feeling of being suddenly accepted by the light was not something that ordinary people could understand. Others did not know the reason, but it was impossible for Lin Yi not to know. He immediately walked over and patted his shoulder gently, smiled warmly, and said, "You've worked hard, welcome back." Hearing this, Li Xingming grinned. His smile was very unnatural, and it could even be said that his smile was very ugly. It was not that he had any thoughts in his mind, but it was a smile that came from the bottom of his heart. It was just that he had not smiled for a long time, and he had forgotten how to smile. Thinking back, in the half a year that he had been in the Welcome Pavilion, not only did he bear the heavy responsibility of being a spy for Lin Yi, but he also had to face all kinds of oppression from Meng Jueguang and Meng Tong every day. He could only endure and not resist, so naturally, he could not smile. Not to mention that the entire Clearwater Villa had been annihilated, and he was burdened with such a deep blood feud. Every day, as soon as he closed his eyes, he would see the insufferably formidable figure of his enemy in the depths of his mind, so how could he possibly smile? Your smile is really ugly. Looks like you have to practice more in the future. Otherwise, when you smile, you look like you're crying. That's too fucking scary. Xiao Hongkai did not know about these inside stories, so he immediately made a vicious comment. Li Jingming did not know whether to laugh or cry, but he felt a little warmth in his heart. It felt good to be brothers with such a simple-minded guy. At this time, Xiaoran walked over and smiled at Li Jingming. Brother Jingming, after a few days, when you're fully recovered, why don't you come and fight with me? For a moment, everyone was silent. Xiao Hongkai was a fighter, so they had expected him to challenge Li Jingming. However, Xiaoran was not that kind of person. Under normal circumstances, he would not easily fight. Previously, Xiao Hongkai had always wanted to fight with him, but he never agreed. Now, he actually took the initiative to challenge Li Jingming. Was it because he was eager to fight, or was there a deeper meaning behind it? Chapter 3967. Seeing that there seemed to be a smell of gunpowder between the two, senior brother Ku could not help but secretly pat Lin Yi and whispered worriedly, "Junior brother Lin, aren't you going to come out and stop it? He just joined us," and he was immediately challenged by junior brother Qiao and junior brother Xiao. I'm afraid that Li Jingming will have complaints in his heart. Complaints? They're not some shallow and boring people. You don't have to worry about them, senior brother Ku. Lin Yi smiled faintly, unconcerned. Regarding the people under his command, Lin Yi understood them far better than anyone else present. There were only two reasons why Xiao Ran did this. One was that it was rare to meet an expert of the same level, so it was inevitable that he would be excited. This was human nature, and even Xiao Ran was no exception. As for the other reason, it was something that even Lin Yi himself was quite interested in. Currently, most of the newcomers in Blue Cloud Pavilion had already joined Lin Yi, but there were only 3 people who would be valued by Lin Yi and could possibly take on heavy responsibilities. One was Xiao Ran, the other was Xiao Hongkai, and the last possible candidate was Li Jingming, who had just joined Lin Yi's side. It was inevitable that these 3 people would compete with each other, and it could also be said that it was something that was inevitable. Now that Li Jingming had defeated Xiao Hongkai, then in the battle between him and Xiao Ran, no matter which side won, they would be able to lock the position of the number 1 person under Lin Yi's side. There was no doubt about this. Others might not be able to see this, but these 3 people must have seen it very clearly. Lin Yi was also very curious about this. After all, these 3 people had extraordinary talent and potential. In the future, when they grow up, they would all be strong subordinates. Among these 3 people, who was stronger and who was weaker would decide who would be the most reliable right hand of Lin Yi in the future. As soon as Li Jingming joined Lin Yi's side, the news of Xiao Hongkai and Xiao Ran's challenge spread like wildfire. Naturally, this matter became the focus of the Welcome Pavilion recently. Such a lively matter. Naturally, it could not escape Murongzhen's eyes and ears. After knowing about this, Murongzhen immediately went to find Meng Tong in a rage. What is it? Meng Tong weakly let Murongzhen into the cave. His face was frighteningly pale, and he looked miserable as if he was beyond cure. Previously, when Lin Yi left behind an injury, although he had used the Grade 4 Recover pill to keep him alive, because the medicinal power of the Grade 4 Recover pill clashed with the remaining Meridian Heart-shattering pill in his body, his injury had not fully healed until now. Moreover, he had to endure the inhumane heart-shattering pain every day from midnight to noon. On top of that, Meng Jueguang's death had left a huge impact on him. The fact that Meng Tong was still alive could be said to be a small miracle. How did you end up like this? Murongzhen could not help but frown at the sight. It was true that she looked down on Meng Tong in the past. However, ever since Meng Tong consumed the Meridian Heart-shattering pill and was reborn, she could clearly feel that this guy's ability was slightly stronger than hers. Therefore, her impression of him had changed. One could even say that she had high hopes for him. Even after Meng Tong was defeated by Lin Yi, she would not look down on him like she did in the past. Spit it out if you have anything to say. Meng Tong glared at her coldly. In the beginning, he was a little tempted by this woman. However, ever since he returned from the back mountain, that thought had faded away. Especially after he consumed the Meridian Heart-shattering pill, his personality had changed drastically. He would not take this woman who only knew how to sell herself seriously. Murongzhen was stunned, and her face instantly turned red. Since when was she, the beautiful Murongzhen, treated with disdain by a mere Meng Tong? However, Murongzhen suppressed her anger forcefully. Now that Meng Jueguang was not here, if she wanted to fight against Lin Yi, she had to rope in all the allies that she could. Kong Mingming was one of them, and so was Meng Tong. Before this, she and Lin Yi only had different standpoints. However, after the incident at the Half-Moon Lake in the back mountain, Lin Yi had become a thorn in her flesh that she had to get rid of. If she wanted to fight against Shanghai Laner, Lin Yi would be the first obstacle in her way. When a scheming woman like Murongzhen made up her mind to do something, it was absolutely terrifying. No matter how bad Meng Tong's attitude was, as long as they were on the same side, she would endure it. You know that Li Jingming sought refuge with Lin Yi, don't you? Murongzhen said while suppressing her unhappiness. I didn't know that. Meng Tong was slightly taken aback. He had been hiding in his cave to recuperate in seclusion, so he knew very little about what was happening in the outside world. Murongzhen was the one who came to tell him about Meng Jueguang's death. I don't know what you're planning, but from what I see, it doesn't matter if the others seek refuge with Lin Yi. After all, they're useless trash. However, Li Jingming is different. He's not to be trifled with, Murongzhen said lecherously. Not to be trifled with. Did you see that with your eyes? Meng Tong panted heavily as he sneered. He had been looking down on Li Jingming since a long time ago, let alone now that he had been reborn. Murongzhen shook her head speechlessly and said slowly, I'll only say one thing. He was challenged by Qiao Hongkai and he won cleanly. What? Meng Tong's expression suddenly changed. Like everyone else, he had always thought that Li Jingming was just a weakling at Heaven's stage full cycle, so he had never taken him seriously. However, Li Jingming was actually able to defeat Qiao Hongkai. After fighting Qiao Hongkai 3 times, he was well aware of how strong Qiao Hongkai was. Strictly speaking, even if he took the Meridian Heart-shattering pill and was reborn, it would not be easy for him to defeat Qiao Hongkai, who was in the early stage of the Foundation establishment realm. The fact that Li Jingming could defeat Qiao Hongkai meant that he had successfully built his foundation and was a top-notch existence among experts of the same level. This person was supposed to be a powerful chess piece that we used to deal with Lin Yi. I thought that after Meng Jueguang died, you would at least try to win him over. I didn't expect you to ignore him and directly let him join Lin Yi. Murongzhen said resentfully. Logically, after learning of Meng Juiguang's death, Meng Tong, as the #1 person under Meng Juiguang, should have immediately stood up and tried to take over Meng Juiguang's subordinates. However, Meng Tong did not do so. Firstly, he was busy recuperating in seclusion, so it was not convenient for him to come out and meet people. Secondly, he looked down on these trash who had not even built their foundation, so he was too lazy to waste his energy. However, he did not expect that Li Jingming, who had hidden such a powerful strength, would appear under him. Chapter 3968. If that's the case, then I've really miscalculated. Meng Tong was rather annoyed. If it was in the past, he might still be stubborn. However, his temperament had changed. Although he did not look like a normal person, he was much more tolerant than before. However, Murongjin suddenly said, "Actually, in my opinion, Li Jingming's defection to Lin Yi might not be a foregone conclusion." "What do you mean?" Meng Tong could not help but ask in confusion. "I've already said that as soon as Li Jingming defected, he was immediately challenged by Qiao Hongkai. That was supposed to be a show of strength, but he won instead. Guess how Qiao Hongkai feels now?" Murongjin speculated. "Moreover, I've also heard that after Qiao Hongkai was defeated by Li Jingming, Xiao Ran challenged him again. I don't think I need to explain what's going on, right? Are you saying that Li Jingming has been pushed aside by Lin Yi's subordinates?" Meng Tong's eyes lit up. It was not impossible. If Meng Tong was in Qiao Hongcai's and Xiao Ran's position, he might have done the same thing to strengthen his position. Otherwise, he would not have suppressed Li Jingming in front of Meng Juiguang. That's right. This is our chance. We can try to change Li Jingming's allegiance. Murongjin's eyes lit up. Sure, I'm fine with it. Meng Tong glanced at Murongjin and said, "This should be your specialty. I don't think I have to do it myself." Apart from a few unusual creatures, Murongjin's honey trap was very effective most of the time in the Welcome Pavilion where women were absent all year round. It's not a problem for me to do it. However, since Li Jingming has been enduring for so long, he's not a shallow person. Can you change his allegiance? It depends on your sincerity, Murongjin said. Back at the back mountain, she clearly saw how Meng Tong treated Li Jingming. To her, Li Jingming defected to Lin Yi because he was forced by Meng Tong. If Meng Tong did not change his attitude, it would be useless no matter how hard she tried. Meng Tong's expression froze. He then said, "Go ahead and seduce him. I know what to do when the time comes." "Very good. Then wait for my good news," Murongjin smiled, then turned around and left while twisting her waist. As long as Meng Tong was willing to apologize to Li Jingming, she believed that with her charm, it would be easy for her to seduce Li Jingming. However, Murongjin did not go to Li Jingming directly after she returned. After all, Li Jingming had just defected to Lin Yi. Even if he was being ostracized, it was just the beginning. He had not experienced it deeply enough. It was better to let him experience it for a while. Especially when he fought with Xiao Ran, the conflict between them would definitely intensify. If she, Murongjin, were to make an appearance when Li Jingming was suffering, then she would surely be able to accomplish twice the result with half the effort. Of course. Although the matter of instigating Li Jingming to defect was temporarily put aside, Murongjin did not stay idle. Her top priority now was to hook Kong Mingming. No matter what, this was the meat that had truly entered her mouth, and it was definitely profitable. Soon. Thanks to Murongjin's flattery, her efforts weren't wasted. Kong Xiaoming helped her reap some benefits that were neither too big nor too small. After getting Su Lingchong's permission, Kong Mingming took the initiative to suggest to Pavilion leader Hu Yunfeng that Murongjin should be the second senior brother in charge of Blue Cloud Pavilion's newcomers. This suggestion was exactly what Hu Yunfeng wanted. Now that his senior brother had been promoted to the position of Clear Cloud Pavilion's new eldest senior brother, although the position of second senior brother didn't seem important and didn't have much actual power, it was a hard-to-come-by opportunity. In this kind of situation, it had an irreplaceable role. With Hu Yunfeng's order, Murongzhen immediately became the second senior brother in charge of Blue Cloud Pavilion's newcomers. Lin Yi did not care about it. In Lin Yi's eyes, these things were not worth mentioning. His top priority now was to go to Blue Cloud Pavilion to find the King of Worn Out. It had been several months since he made the agreement with the King of Worn Out. Although he was really troubled by various things, Lin Yi still felt sorry for the King of Worn Out. Now that the threat of Meng Juiguang had been successfully solved, and there was nothing else important for the time being, it was time to fulfill the agreement with the King of Worn Out. Lin Yi needed to upgrade the level of the fine steel staff as soon as possible. Otherwise, he could not use the Heavenly Stage magic weapon in the Foundation Establishment stage. After roughly inquiring about the internal situation of the Blue Cloud Pavilion with senior brother Ku Bai, Lin Yi immediately set off. Alone, Lin Yi soon arrived at the territory of the Blue Cloud Pavilion. Generally speaking, the territories of the three pavilions were heavily guarded, especially places like the skyscraping pavilion. Last time, Xiaoran just went in to find someone and was almost killed. He was lucky to meet Shanghai Laner, so he was lucky enough to survive. However, although the three great pavilions were on the same level in name, the gap between them was like heaven and earth. Compared to the heavily guarded Soaring Sky Pavilion, the Clear Cloud Pavilion's guards were so loose that it was as if they had no defenses at all. From the beginning to the end, no guards came to question Lin Yi, a stranger who had appeared out of nowhere. Of course, Lin Yi's destination was only the periphery of the foot of the mountain. If he really wanted to enter the inner periphery of the core of power, it would be a different scene. Senior brother, may I ask if Wang Lanpa lives here? Lin Yi had learned from senior brother Ku Bai before that this guy seemed to live in a wooden house at the foot of the mountain. However, after looking around, he did not find any wooden house, so he could only ask the people around him. Wang Lanpa. Who is this guy? I've never heard of him. The man frowned and immediately turned to leave. However, after a while, he suddenly turned his head and said, I've never heard of Wang Lanpa, but there is a famous poor guy here called the King of Worn Out. Lin Yi did not know whether to laugh or cry. The King of Worn Out was Wang Lanpa. How did this guy get along? People only remembered his nickname, but had never heard of his real name. That's him. Senior brother, can you tell me where he lives? Lin Yi asked immediately. Chapter 3969. Thank you. Lin Yi nodded and went in the direction the man pointed out. After a while, Lin Yi found a ruin at the foot of the mountain. Judging from the wreckage, it should be the wooden house the man mentioned. Lin Yi couldn't help but be taken aback. If this really was the King of Trash's place, then this guy wasn't just in trouble, he was in trouble. Even his place was burned down. Just how big of a grudge was this guy? After all, it couldn't be that the Rag King was bored and burned the house to relieve his boredom, right? Fortunately, the Rag King was an expert at the peak of the early stage of the foundation building realm. Unless he was killed, the fire in the wooden house should not hurt him. However, if he could not find the Rag King, it would be difficult for Lin Yi. With his identity as Second Lin, even if he got rid of the threat of Meng Juiguang, he could not show up too blatantly. If he could not find the Rag King in a short time, he would have to return without any achievement. Just as Lin Yi was hesitating whether he should stay here or not, three figures rushed over from behind. They were still quite a distance away, but they had already used their skills to attack Lin Yi without saying a word. Lin Yi was shocked. He thought his identity had been exposed. It would not be good news for him to make a scene in such a place. However, this was Blue Cloud Pavilion's territory after all. If someone was killed, the situation would be out of control and there would be endless trouble. Without thinking too much, Lin Yi dodged the attack with the butterfly micro-steps and said coldly, "Who are you? What do you want?" "Humph, what else? Of course, we are here to get even with you. How dare you steal from us? You don't even know how to write the word death. Last time, we only burned your wooden house. You got off lightly. Today, I will teach you a lesson." The leader sneered. However, when he saw Lin Yi's face clearly, he suddenly stopped talking. You are not the Rag King." Lin Yi glanced at him. "What do you think?" The three of them could not help but look at each other. However, after realizing that they had mistaken him for someone else, they did not stop. Instead, they argued, even if he's not the Trash King, he must be the Trash King's accomplice. We're doing the will of heaven a favor by taking care of him. On behalf of the will of heaven. Heh, what an infuriating fellow. Lin Yi frowned. Then, the aura around his body suddenly surged, and the fiery fist intent enveloped all directions, as if the god of fire had appeared. As a powerhouse, there was no need for him to be overly patient with such ignorant fools. If he felt that they were too noisy, he could just knock them down with a single move. The three of them were only at the peak of the early stage of the Foundation establishment realm. In Lin Yi's eyes, they could be said to be vulnerable. In just one move, the three of them had all fallen under Lin Yi's understated 24 forms of Frenzy Fist. Each of them was charred black and battered. If it was not for Lin Yi's deliberate mercy, the three of them would have been burned to ashes. Not even a corpse would be left. Blue Cloud Pavilion is really weak. It's called a waste shelter. Lin Yi shook his head speechlessly. The three of them were the inner disciples of Blue Cloud Pavilion. Looking at their arrogant looks, he thought that they would have some strength. He did not expect them to be so vulnerable. It really made him speechless. After a long while, the three of them who were lucky enough to keep their lives finally recovered from the shock. After looking at Lin Yi from afar, they turned around and ran away while screaming as if they had seen a ghost. If the three of them had to describe their feelings at the moment, it could only be described as wanting to cry but having no tears. They were obviously here to settle accounts with the Trash King who did not even know how to fight. In the end, they inexplicably kicked an iron plate. How could they reason with this thing? Looking at this ruthless person, he was probably from Soaring Sky Pavilion, right? Thinking of this, the three of them thought that they were lucky not to be crippled. Lin Yi smiled disdainfully and let the three of them run away in embarrassment. He did not have the intention to kill them. Otherwise, if he had the intention, these three ignorant guys would have long been dead. They have already run away. Can you come out now? Lin Yi suddenly said to a rock in the ruins. This guy hid so well that even he did not notice him at first. However, when he was affected by the fist intent of the frenzy fist just now, there was clearly movement behind him. After a long while, there was still no movement behind the rock. Not even a weak breath could be felt. Logically, with Lin Yi's keen perception, this distance could not escape his eyes and ears at all. It was impossible that he could not even detect the breath. If it were others, they might think that it was an illusion just now, but Lin Yi was quite sure. He smiled slightly and said, "If you don't come out, then don't blame me for being rude and giving you another punch." After that, Lin Yi condensed the fiery fist intent again. There was finally movement behind the rock. Wait, I'm coming out." A disheveled figure immediately jumped out of the ruins. His clothes had been burned to tatters, and his face was scorched black. At first glance, he looked like an African refugee. Before Lin Yi said anything, the man hurriedly nodded and bowed and said, "Brother, I really didn't mean to steal your spiritual beast materials. You have already thrown them away. At most, I picked them up and reused them. How can it be considered as stealing? Lin Yi was stunned, and then he could not help but laugh. He might not be able to recognize him just by looking at his strange appearance, but from his voice, he obviously knew that this person was the King of Rags he was looking for. King of Rags, why don't you think about it carefully and see if you really stole my spiritual beast materials? Lin Yi simply did not point it out. He raised his eyebrows and joked with him. This really can't be considered as stealing. You have eyes but failed to see and threw away good things as trash. In the end, when I picked them up, you insist that I stole them and want me to pay for spiritual jades. Don't you think I'm wronged? The King of Rags did not even dare to look at Lin Yi in the eye. He just kept saying with a crying face. Don't you feel wronged? Why don't you tell me what kind of trash you've been picking up? Maybe you've made a mistake too. Lin Yi said playfully. Chapter 3970. Lin Yi couldn't help but laugh. Black toad tail, fox bear bone, wolf spider fur, it sounds like you've picked up quite a few things. I wonder if you still remember the front claws and whip tail of the nine-tailed cloud leopard? Nine-tailed cloud leopard? This guy's body is full of treasures. Who would throw away his things like trash? Is there something wrong with his head? Wait, did you say nine-tailed cloud leopard? The King of Junk mumbled subconsciously. When he took a closer look at Lin Yi, he was stunned as if he had been struck by lightning. He was so excited that he stuttered, You. Who are you? The second brother Lin. Hee, you finally recognize me. I thought you're ready to turn your back on me after such a long time. Lin Yi smiled faintly. You flatter me. I've been waiting for you for the past few months. How could I turn my back on you? The King of Junk was overjoyed. For a person like him who valued forging as his life, it was rare for Lin Yi to promise him that he could handle a high-end material like the nine-tailed cloud leopard. This was something that he had always dreamed of. He was excited every day when he thought about it. For the past few months, the King of Junk had been making various preparations for this. The reason why he had gone out to collect so many materials from spiritual beasts was also because of this consideration. Even the King of Junk had once suspected that Lin Yi had forgotten about it. After all, he called himself a forger, but he'd never succeeded in crafting any decent weapons. He didn't think that he had any persuasiveness, or he wouldn't have gotten the reputation of being the King of Junk. It was only natural that he'd be forgotten by people. If it wasn't for Lin Yi mentioning the nine-tailed cloud leopard, the King of Junk would never have linked this person's identity to Lin Yi. He would have thought that this person was here to make trouble for him, just like the other three people. Lin Yi couldn't help but lament at the sight of the King of Junk's ecstatic expression. This King of Junk really had it tough. Putting everything else aside, he was still obsessed with the path of smithing despite being in such a sorry state. At the very least, it proved that his passion for forging was unparalleled. Just based on this point alone, Lin Yi felt that he had found the right person. Regardless of whether it was dead or alive, as long as one put their heart into it, everything in the world would have spirituality. For a person like the tattered king who could fully devote his attention to the art of forging, no matter how low the level of the item he forged was, it would still be extraordinary. Brother Wang, it looks like you've been in a lot of trouble recently. Lin Yi pointed at the surrounding ruins and asked with a smile. The King of Junk's expression froze. He scratched the back of his head awkwardly and said with an embarrassed smile, I've embarrassed myself in front of you, Brother Lin. I merely picked up something from the pile of junk they threw away. I didn't expect to get myself into so much trouble. It was clearly something that they threw away, but I picked it up and they insisted that I stole it. Brother Lin, don't you think they're being too unreasonable? Hee hee, that's how people are. It's fine if you're just throwing away some junk that no one wants. However, once they find out that they've made a mistake and thrown away the wrong item, it's like cutting off a piece of flesh from their body. Of course, they won't let it go. Lin Yi shook his head and suddenly asked, how did they know that they made a mistake? Brother Wang, you didn't pick it up in front of them, did you? The king of junk scratched his head awkwardly again and said with an embarrassed smile, come to think of it, it's also because of me. Brother Lin, you can also see that people like me can't stand people wasting good things. When I saw them throwing away good things like they were trash, I couldn't help but mutter a few words about it. I don't know how it spread to their ears. That's why they came looking for me. Lin Yi didn't know whether to laugh or cry after hearing this. The king of junk's temperament was indeed like this. When he first traded with Chen Heihu, this guy couldn't help but say a few words to change his mind at the last minute and cut off the nine-tailed cloud leopard's front claws and whip tail. In other words, the reason was actually because of the king of junk himself. If those people knew that the junk they threw away was good stuff and was picked up by someone else, it would be strange if they could bear it. If those people were a little narrow-minded, it was inevitable that they would come looking for trouble. Moreover, the king of junk was basically a coward that could be trampled on by anyone. It could be seen that the king of junk's EQ was really not high. Looking at the situation, they should have been looking for you more than once. Brother Wang, why don't you leave this troublesome place as soon as possible? Instead, you stay here in such a mess. Lin Yi was puzzled. The wooden house here should have been burned a few days ago. The king of junk's burnt and miserable appearance was not caused by Lin Yi's frenzied fire fist just now. After all, the frenzied fire fist had locked onto the three people just now. The king of junk was at most slightly affected by the fist intent. If it was not unexpected, the king of junk's current appearance was left when the wooden house was burned. If it were someone else, they would definitely find a chance to leave in these few days. Even if they were worried and came back to take a look, they would at least clean themselves up. They would not look like this. Hee hee, I was afraid that Brother Lin wouldn't be able to find them when you arrived, so I've been waiting here. The tattered king said straightforwardly and honestly. Lin Yi could not help being speechless for a while. At the same time, he was secretly moved. It was just because of an agreement with a stranger that he stayed here regardless of the danger. It was really rare to see such an honest person like the king of junk these days. Brother Wang, you have been staying here all this time. Then why didn't they find you when they burned the house last time? Lin Yi could not help but ask curiously. Although the king of junk's strength was really weak, he could feel that he seemed to be good at hiding himself. Yes, they couldn't find me last time, so they burned my house to vent their anger. In fact, I have been hiding here from beginning to end. I just used the calm heart-holding method, so they couldn't find me. The king of junk smiled proudly. Calm heart-holding method. Lin Yi was slightly stunned. Chapter 3971. I see. The art of forging is indeed unfathomable and extraordinary. Lin Yi exclaimed. Speaking of which, when he was in the secular world, he had already tried to forge weapons. That was how he got his fine steel staff. At that time, he thought that it wouldn't be too difficult to forge weapons. It was just that everyone had their own specialties, and he was still at the stage of fumbling around. But now, Lin Yi could feel the profoundness and depth of this line of work from the king of garbage's words. This was a line of work that wasn't any weaker than elixir refinement, and underestimating it was a sign of ignorance on the part of an outsider. The three people just now were experts at the peak of the early stage of the foundation establishment realm. Normally, it was impossible for someone like the tattered king to fool them and burn down their house, unless it was an expert like Lin Yi. However, the tattered king did it. It showed that the exclusive meditation and breath-holding method of a blacksmith was indeed extraordinary. Of course, I'm not boasting. Even if you study the art of forging for a lifetime, you will at most have a superficial understanding of it. It's impossible to master it completely. The tattered king looked fascinated. After a pause, he suddenly rubbed his hands and said eagerly, "Brother Lin, time is precious. Can we start as soon as possible?" Lin Yi was startled. Looking at the tattered king's impatience, he could not help but laugh. He pointed at the ruins in front of him and said, "I'm fine with it. But do we do it here?" The tattered king immediately shook his head and said, "Of course not. Forging weapons is the same as alchemy. It has high requirements for the environment. Alchemy is better, at least there's an alchemy furnace. However, there's no such thing as a furnace for forging weapons. We can only find a suitable place by ourselves." Then where can we find such a place? Lin Yi was puzzled. In front of the tattered king, he was a complete outsider. Since he had asked the tattered king for help, he could only let the tattered king make the decision. He only needed to cooperate fully. The tattered king smiled mysteriously and said, "I know a good place. Brother Lin, just follow me." Lin Yi didn't mind. He asked the tattered king to lead the way. They walked for an hour before they finally arrived at their destination. Looking at the hole in front of him that was as tall as a person and hidden by the weeds, Lin Yi was speechless. "If I remember correctly, this place should be at the edge of the Spirit Jade Mine, right?" "That's right, it's right next to the Spirit Jade Mine. Furthermore, it's not too far from the best mines in the Spirit Jade Mine. You might even be able to find some spiritual jades in the cave." The King of Rags and Rags led the way into the cave and answered without looking back. "It's not far from the number 1 and number 2 mines." Lin Yi was surprised again. In that case, if one had the intention to dig, it was indeed possible to find spiritual jades. However, since the King of Junk knew of such a treasured land, how did he end up in such a state? After all, this place wasn't supervised like the Lingyu Hall mining area. As long as he dug up spiritual jades here, no matter how many there were, it would belong to him. His life should be quite comfortable. He shouldn't be so poor that he couldn't even afford some spiritual beast materials and had to shamelessly pick up the garbage thrown away by others, right? Yes, but I'm just joking. Brother Lin, don't take it seriously. Don't touch the cave wall casually, let alone dig out the spiritual jades inside. If you accidentally touch the protective array inside, both of us will die." The King of Rags and Rags said as he took out a piece of fluorite that he had prepared long ago. He led the way into the depths of the cave with familiarity. Lin Yi's heart skipped a beat and he asked curiously, "If I'm not wrong, since this place is so close to the number 1 and number 2 mines, it should be within the range of the protective array. Maybe we've already stepped on the protective array, but we don't know why we didn't touch it. How could there be such a cave out of nowhere?" The King of Rags and Rags shook his head and said, "I don't know either. Maybe it has something to do with my master. My master was the one who brought me here for the first time. After that, he left without saying goodbye, so no one else has been to this cave except me." Sun Sikong. Lin Yi was slightly stunned. When they first met in the marketplace, the King of Rags once said that he had learned from a master of forging called Sun Sikong for a few days. That must be the master he mentioned. "Yes, my master is very resourceful. It's not impossible for him to secretly make a cave under the protective array without the 3 pavilions knowing." The King of Rags and Rags' face was full of admiration. "I really want to meet such an expert if I have the chance." Lin Yi was also fascinated. This cave looked simple, but for it to be able to appear in such a tight defensive formation and not be discovered by anyone, the ability it displayed was not something that could be described in a few words. The person who created this cave was at least worthy of the word remarkable. It depends on fate. An expert like my master is always elusive. I'm afraid the chance of meeting him again in this life is very slim. The King of Rags and Rags sighed. As they talked, they had already arrived at the depths of the cave. The front was much more spacious than the passage. It was about 30 to 40 square meters, and there were many strange props placed in it. Seeing that Lin Yi was curiously looking at these props, the King of Rags smiled and said, "These are some auxiliary molds that may be used in the process of forging. However, whether they are useful or not depends on what kind of weapon you want to forge." Speaking of this, Brother Lin, do you have any requests? Yes, I came to you this time because I want you to help me upgrade a weapon. As Lin Yi said, he put down the package that he had been carrying on his back for a long time, and took out an ordinary-looking fire stick from it. It was his fine steel staff. After seeing the fine steel staff, the King of Rags' eyes suddenly lit up. He took it and looked at it carefully from top to bottom, and touched it with his hand. Then, he commented while smacking his lips, "This thing is made of good materials. I can see that the casting process is quite thoughtful. However, it's a bit of a waste that the properties of the materials are not fully explored." Lin Yi couldn't help but secretly wipe his cold sweat, and said with a wry smile, "I made this by myself, Brother King." Chapter 3972. He was counting on Lin Yi to give him good materials, so that he could satisfy his craving for forging. If he offended Lin Yi, or if he pissed off Lin Yi, he'd be crying. "Not at all, compared to you, Brother Wang, I'm just an amateur. I'd like to use this chance to learn the art of forging from you, Brother Wang. Is that okay?" Lin Yi smiled. Lin Yi, naturally, was a blacksmith, but he was just a dabbler. What made Lin Yi curious was, who was this Sun Sikong? Han Jingjing had said that her master was called Sun Sikong as well. Could these two Sun Sikongs be the same person? Then how did he come to Sky Class Island? Could he be a legendary figure like Zhang Liju? At the thought, Lin Yi's heart was filled with even more respect. The tattered king hurriedly said in excitement, "Brother Lin, you're too kind. It's my dream to have a like-minded person to explore the Tao of smithing with me. Don't worry, Brother Lin, I'll tell you everything I know. Then I'll thank you in advance, Brother Wang." Lin Yi nodded in thanks before taking out the high-level spirit beast materials that the Trash King had been longing for. It was the front claws and tail of the Cloud Nine-tail leopard. At the sight of these items, the tattered king's eyes immediately lit up. Like a hungry wolf seeing a sheep, his entire temperament changed instantly. Faintly, Lin Yi could feel the aura of a master that couldn't be underestimated. One could see that even if he wasn't strong enough, when a person was fully focused on something, his potential could be unearthed. These are all good stuff. The tattered king held these things in his arms like they were treasures. He carefully reached out and gently stroked them, afraid that he would dirty them. Looking at his posture, it seemed like he wanted to sleep with these things. After a moment of happiness, Junk King realized that there was a Lin Yi in front of him. He took out a few things and introduced them to Lin Yi. They were the black toad tail, fox bear bone, and wolf spider fur. "Brother Lin, these things may not look like much, and they're not the most valuable parts of the spiritual beasts, but these are the fruits of my hard work over the past few months. Together with your cloud leopard, they're definitely good stuff. They're very compatible with each other, and their effects aren't inferior to any other spiritual beast materials." Junk King showed Lin Yi. "Brother Wang, it's been hard on you these past few months." Lin Yi expressed his gratitude. "Not at all. It's not hard at all. To me, It's a good job, and I can't wait to be happy. Junk King chuckled. After a pause, Junk King looked at Lin Yi's fine steel staff and scratched his head. He said with fervor and assurance, "Brother Lin, you didn't tell me about this before, so I didn't think about the casting plan. But don't worry, I've roughly observed it just now, and your staff doesn't conflict with the materials of the cloud leopard, so it shouldn't be a problem to upgrade it. Moreover, the materials involved aren't many, so I believe it won't take long to gather all the materials." Even though Lin Yi was an outsider, he could see that Junk King was indeed a forging madman, and he definitely had real skills. If he was given the right opportunity, it might be possible for him to amaze the world with a single brilliant feat. This Junk King, who was belittled by everyone, was actually a buried gem. Once he showed his brilliance, he would definitely amaze the world. Seeing that Junk King couldn't wait to start thinking about the upgrading plan, Lin Yi hurriedly said, "Brother Wang, please wait. I have other materials with me. Why don't you take a look first?" "Oh. Quick, take them out." Junk King's eyes lit up, and he couldn't wait to urge Lin Yi. Lin Yi smiled, and then slowly took out a small porcelain bottle from the cloth bundle, and handed it to Junk King. The King of Junk took it, opened the bottle cap, and was stunned the moment he took a look. He put his nose close to the bottle and sniffed it in disbelief. He even dipped his finger into the bottle and tasted it. After a while, he became fanatical, and his eyes glowed with green light like a hungry wolf. "Brother Lin, this is the legendary ancient Pure Land." Junk King stammered. "That's right, Brother Wang, you have a good eye. Ordinary people wouldn't be able to recognize this thing." Lin Yi praised with a smile. The ancient Pure Land was a rare and unorthodox treasure. Apart from the ghostly old monster who had lived for an unknown period of time, ordinary people would not be able to recognize it. They might not even have heard of it. Even Yu Zhe, who had immersed himself in the ancient classics, might not be able to recognize it. It could be seen that the King of Junk was indeed skilled in forging weapons. Hearing that, Junk King almost fainted, and it took him a while to regain his senses. He looked at Lin Yi with tears in his eyes, and almost knelt down. "Brother Lin, you're really my second parent. I have no more regrets in my life to be able to see such a legendary material. Don't worry, I haven't taken out anything yet." Seeing Junk King's expression as if he had gotten what he wanted, Lin Yi could not help but laugh. He took out another item from the bag and handed it to Junk King. This is a 1,000-year tree crystal. You even have such a thing. May I be so bold as to ask, who exactly are you, Brother Lin?" Junk King's eyes widened, and saliva flowed from the corner of his mouth uncontrollably. He looked like he had lost his soul. "I'm no saint, but I still have something to show you." With that, Lin Yi pulled out another piece of wood as if he was performing a magic trick, handing it to the Garbage King. Junk King took the piece of wood and looked at it carefully for a while. Then, without saying anything, he fell to the ground and fainted. Lin Yi did not know whether to laugh or cry at this scene. Although the 1,000-year tree crystal was indeed rare, and it was shocking to see it together with the ancient Pure Land and the 1,000-year tree crystal, it was a little too much for Junk King to be so shocked that he fainted on the spot. Fortunately, he had encountered someone like the Tattered King who knew what was good for him. Otherwise, if it was an ordinary person, they wouldn't even be able to recognize the 10,000-year tree crystal and the ancient Pure Land, let alone be provoked. After a long time, Junk King finally woke up. He almost fainted again when he saw the priceless items in front of him. Lin Yi quickly grabbed him and joked, "Brother King, you're a blacksmith after all. I've only let you look at the materials, but you've fainted again and again. How can I ask you for help?" Junk King finally calmed himself down. He scratched his head awkwardly and smiled foolishly. His eyes could not move away from the 1,000-year tree crystal. Chapter 3973. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation. Lin Yi asked again, Brother King, apart from the 9-tailed cloud leopard and the materials you've brought, the 10,000-year tree crystal, the 1,000-year tree crystal, and the ancient Pure Land should be more than enough to upgrade my fine steel magic staff, right? Unexpectedly, the Junk King suddenly said with a serious expression, Not enough, of course these things are far from enough. What? Lin Yi paused, wondering if this guy's eyes had really been opened to treasures and started thinking about something he shouldn't have, right? There were so many rare items in this world, and he was using them to level up a steel staff. How could it not be enough? Could it be that this fellow wanted to take the opportunity to extort money? No matter how much of an amateur Lin Yi was, he had at least experimented with the art of forging, and had some understanding of it. In his estimation, if he wanted to upgrade his fine steel magic staff, ordinary materials and the 1,000-year tree crystal should be enough. Now that he had the 10,000-year tree crystal and the ancient Pure Land, it was definitely more than enough. Brother Lin, I don't mind telling you the truth. Your fine steel magic staff is a good item in the heaven rank, but unfortunately, its quality isn't that high. If you use these top-notch materials to upgrade it, it would be more than enough, and you could guarantee a 100% success rate. It's just that you would be wasting these rare materials, the Junk King said with a pained expression. Lin Yi nodded in realization. It was just as the King of Junk had said. In terms of value, this staff of his wasn't even worth as much as something like the 10,000-year tree crystal. It was like replacing a car that cost tens of thousands of dollars with top-grade accessories that cost tens of millions. It was a waste, and it wouldn't be an exaggeration to call it a waste. Then what should we do? It's not good to abandon the fine steel magic staff, right? Lin Yi couldn't help feeling awkward. It would be a waste to use these top-notch materials to upgrade the fine steel staff. However, the fine steel staff was not an ordinary item, and he had poured a lot of effort into it. It would be a huge waste to discard it. He was in a dilemma. The Junk King frowned and pondered for a moment. Then, his eyes beaming with excitement, he said, If it is simply used to upgrade the staff, it will certainly be an inhumane waste. But what if it evolves in a different way? Wouldn't it be the best of both worlds? Evolve. Lin Yi was stunned. What's the difference between that and leveling up? Of course there's a difference. The King of Junk immediately exclaimed, Upgrading weapons is very common. It doesn't require much skill. Basically, any blacksmith can do it. Is it common to upgrade weapons? Lin Yi was even more puzzled. But why did I hear that ordinary weapons can't be upgraded, and only materials like the 1,000-year tree crystal have a chance to be upgraded? The King of Junk smiled and explained patiently, Brother Lin, there's something you don't know. You can say that you're right, but you can also say that you're wrong. You're just like other laymen. You might not know this, but the saying that ordinary weapons can't be upgraded came from the mouth of the blacksmiths. Think about it. If they make it sound too easy, how are they going to reap huge benefits from it? You blacksmiths are really cunning. Lin Yi quickly figured out the cause and effect. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Let's not talk about whether ordinary weapons could be upgraded. If this concept became common knowledge, it would definitely be of great benefit to the blacksmiths. After all, the profession of blacksmithing was similar to alchemy. There were absolute professional barriers, and laymen had no other choice but to seek help from blacksmiths. In this way, after the difficulty was infinitely exaggerated, they could naturally reap huge benefits when upgrading weapons for others. Even if some people didn't want to upgrade their weapons because of this, they would still need new weapons. In the end, they would still have to seek help from blacksmiths, and it would immediately be a good business. Therefore, as long as this theory was spread out and became the mindset of the people, no one would be able to escape from being ruthlessly slaughtered. It would be a pity if the blacksmith who came up with this idea didn't open a trade union. Lin Yi thought about it and asked again. But, even if someone did spread this rumor, it's impossible for all the blacksmiths to be of one mind, right? Lies will be exposed one day. Did no one find out about it after all these years? If it was a lie that was fabricated out of thin air, it would indeed be easily seen through by others. However, the problem is that this statement isn't a complete lie, but a half-truth and half-falsehood. To an outsider who has been confused by the concept, it would be very difficult to distinguish between the two. Especially when this idea is deeply rooted, even if some blacksmiths stand out to explain it to them, they might not be able to accept it. Moreover, this saying is beneficial to blacksmiths. Who would be foolish enough to stand out and destroy their own jobs, and even become the target of their peers? King of Junk shook his head and said. Lin Yi was instantly interested, and asked, "What exactly is the half-truth? Brother Wang, can you tell me in detail?" Of course, as long as Brother Lin is willing to listen. King of Junk immediately gestured for Lin Yi to take a seat, and explained with assurance, in the eyes of laymen, weapon upgrading is just a general concept, but in the eyes of us blacksmiths, weapon upgrading has two completely different concepts. One is ordinary weapon upgrading, and the other is extremely difficult weapon evolution. What's the difference between the two? Lin Yi asked. There's a huge difference between the two. Ordinary weapon upgrading is actually no different from ordinary people repairing a hoe or an iron pot. As long as they pay attention to the compatibility of the materials, they can directly embed the upgrading materials into the weapon. There's no technical content, and of course, there won't be any great creation. In the end, weapons are weapons, and upgrading materials are upgrading materials. It's just that they're forcefully kneaded together by external forces. King of Junk twitched his mouth. Chapter 3974. What about the weapon evolution you just mentioned? Lin Yi continued to ask. Weapon evolution is completely different. Not only is the process extremely complicated, but it's also extremely difficult. The requirements for materials are also extremely high. After a high-intensity smelting reaction, the weapon and the material will be completely integrated. Basically, it's like a rebirth. The final weapon will be completely different from the original in both shape and ability, and its power will be at least 10 times, 100 times, or even 1,000 times greater than the original. King of Junk said with burning eyes. I see. In that case, the correct explanation should be that ordinary weapons can't evolve. It's not the rumor that they can't be upgraded. The outside world has been confused by this general concept. Lin Yi nodded and said. That's right. Unless you find a rare treasure like the 1,000-year tree crystal, ordinary weapons can't evolve at all. Because without the protection of the characteristics of the 1,000-year tree crystal, it's difficult for them to withstand the high-intensity smelting reaction. Maybe they'll turn into ashes halfway. There are countless examples of such failures. King of Junk sighed. The 1,000-year tree crystal can be used to evolve weapons. So that's its use. I've learned a lot. Lin Yi cupped his hands at King of Junk. The Garbage King, on the other hand, looked at Lin Yi with fire in his eyes. Brother Lin, I'll be honest with you. My biggest wish in this life is to forge a weapon that's unrivaled in the world, but without you, I wouldn't be able to see such a rare treasure in this life. I wouldn't even have the chance to forge a weapon with it. You're my savior, my savior. Seeing that King of Junk knelt down to him without saying anything, Lin Yi hurriedly pulled him back and said emotionally, Brother Wang, what are you doing? You promised to forge weapons for me unconditionally. I'm grateful to you. Why are you kneeling down to me? What the hell is this? If you do this again, I won't dare to ask you for help. No, no, no. You have to ask me for help. You have to ask me for help. I'm the only one who can use such supreme materials in the North Island. No one else can do it. King of Junk hurriedly got up and said. This guy's tone was still as big as ever. Lin Yi laughed in his heart. But after this period of contact, he didn't doubt the King of Junk's ability anymore. It could only be said that all experts had their own pride. At least in the path of forging, the King of Junk's pride wasn't groundless. As for the rumor that he didn't succeed in forging weapons, from Lin Yi's point of view, it was either because he disdained ordinary weapons, or because he really lacked the materials. Moreover, no one believed him at all. Then, what should we do to make perfect use of these materials and not waste them? Brother Wang, didn't you just say that these materials are far from enough? Lin Yi returned to the main topic. King of Junk didn't answer him immediately. Instead, he turned around and took out a piece of white paper from the corner of the cave. After writing a series of things on it, he handed it to Lin Yi and said, I've thought about it carefully just now. Brother Lin, it's rare for you to get such top materials as the ancient Pure Land and the 10,000-year tree crystal. Instead of dealing with them carelessly, it's better to make a big one. What do you think, Brother Lin? Lin Yi's eyes suddenly lit up. King of Junk's idea was exactly what he wanted. He immediately asked, I think so too. But how to make a big one? I've listed a total of 7 materials on this piece of paper. Only after gathering these 7 materials and cooperating with each other can the effect of the ancient Pure Land and the 10,000-year tree crystal be fully exerted. At that time, we can melt the fine steel staff in the furnace, and it will definitely be reborn and become a generation of magic weapons. King of Junk vowed solemnly. Upon hearing this, Lin Yi roughly glanced at the 7 casting materials listed on the white paper. They were all things that he had never seen or heard of before. Among them, the only one that he had a slight impression of was called the mysterious water droplet. I've seen this mysterious water droplet in the Hong Chamber of Commerce before. It's priced at 600 or 700 spiritual jade. I've never seen or heard of any of the others. Lin Yi pondered and said. King of Junk nodded and said, although these 7 materials are only used as auxiliary materials, they can be used with the ancient Pure Land and the 10,000-year tree crystal. Even the auxiliary materials are not cheap. The mysterious water droplet is one of the easiest to buy. As for the other 6, it's not usually available. Even a top chamber of commerce like the Hong Chamber of Commerce may not have such a stock. Then where can we find them? Lin Yi could not help but be stunned. If he could not even buy them in the Hong Chamber of Commerce, he might not be able to find all of them in his lifetime. It's obviously unrealistic to find these things by ourselves. We can only pin our hopes on the auction. It just so happens that as far as I know, next month will be the semi-annual North Island auction. Except for the legendary items like the 10,000-year tree crystal, you should have a chance to see most of the treasures. Brother Lin, why don't you give it a try? But how to get the qualification to enter the auction is a big problem. King of Junk scratched his head in distress. Is it difficult to get the qualification to enter the auction? Will the spiritual jade card work? Lin Yi showed the spiritual jade card in his hand. This was the symbol of his status. Since he could freely enter and exit the inner street, he should be able to enter the auction too, right? Brother Lin, you're really not an ordinary person. You even have this kind of thing. Looking at the spiritual jade card, King of Junk could not help swallowing his saliva. A poor cultivator like him, who lived at the bottom of society, could never get a spiritual jade card in his lifetime. However, King of Junk immediately shook his head and said, I don't know the specific situation, but the auction isn't just held by the Chamber of Commerce in the Inner Street. It's an alliance of all the top forces in the North Island. It's said that even some big shots in the Middle Island are involved. The people who enter and exit are all extraordinary, so a spiritual jade card may not work. I can't help you with this kind of thing. You can only rely on yourself, Brother Lin. I see. Then I'll find someone to inquire about it later. Lin Yi nodded. It was really difficult to count on King of Junk for this kind of thing. It was good enough that he could provide information. He still had to rely on Lin Yi. Well, there are many good things at the auction, but the competition is fierce. If you want to buy all 7 kinds of materials, you'll probably have to spend thousands of spiritual jade, or even tens of thousands if you're unlucky. Brother Lin, you have to be mentally prepared. However, since you have a 10,000-year-old tree crystal, you don't need this 1,000-year-old tree crystal. You can sell it at the auction for a lot of spiritual jade, King of Junk suggested. I know. By the way, there's one more thing I want you to see if it's a casting material, Lin Yi suddenly said. Chapter 3975. Shit, Brother Lin, don't tell me you got some rare ancient treasure again. My heart can't stand such a big shock. King of Junk said in surprise, but he couldn't help poking his head over and picking up a bit of blood-red gravel to observe it carefully. After a while, King of Junk shook his head helplessly. I don't know this thing. It shouldn't be used for forging, otherwise I have no reason not to recognize it. But even so, I can see that it's definitely a good thing. Brother Lin, you can take it to the auction and let someone appraise it. Then you should know. Lin Yi wasn't too surprised. It was normal that the Garbage King couldn't recognize something that even this damned thing couldn't recognize. He'd thought that it was some kind of crafting material, but it seemed like he was wrong. After that, the two talked about weaponsmithing for a bit. The King of Garbage's extraordinary knowledge in this area was quite an eye-opener. According to King of Junk himself, this was just the result of Sun Sikong's casual guidance for a few days. Lin Yi couldn't help but be secretly shocked. The cultivation world was really full of hidden dragons and crouching tigers. Brother Lin, I'll leave the 7 materials to you. I can't help much in this aspect, but I can take this time to do some preparation work. After all, forging a magic weapon is a big event. There can't be any mistakes. King of Junk solemnly said to Lin Yi. Then I'll leave Brother Wang to trouble you. I'll leave first. Brother Wang, wait for my news. Lin Yi immediately stood up and said goodbye. It was not too late when he left the cave. Lin Yi immediately left for the marketplace. Naturally, his purpose was to go to the Hong Chamber of Commerce to ask Hong Zhong about the auction. However, Lin Yi didn't go to the Hong Chamber of Commerce directly. Instead, he went to find Chen Heihu. It had been some time since he came here last time. He wanted to see if there was any news about the heart-devouring exquisite grass. The answer he got from Chen Heihu disappointed Lin Yi a little. Chen Heihu had spread the news of buying the heart-devouring exquisite grass to all his contacts, but there was still no news so far. It could be seen that the heart-devouring exquisite grass was indeed rare. It was already very lucky that he could find it in the periphery of the back mountain and among the spiritual medicine seeds distributed by Ling Yu Hall. Fortunately, the east wasn't bright, and the west was bright. There was no news from Chen Heihu, after all. Lin Yi had asked Hong Zhong for help back then. As soon as Lin Yi stepped into the Hong Chamber of Commerce, Hong Zhong, who was patrolling downstairs, came up and led him to a private room on the 2nd floor. And said, Hero Lin, you asked me to help you buy the heart-devouring exquisite grass last time. Now, I have got to. I'll ask someone to pack it for you. Lin Yi was overjoyed when he heard that. He said gratefully, "Thank you so much, Manager Hong. What's the price?" "Haha, then 100 spiritual jades for one. What do you think, Hero Lin?" Hong Zhong smiled and said while stroking his beard. Lin Yi's heart moved. He knew that Hong Zhong was doing him a favor again. If it was an ordinary spiritual medicine, it could be bought with a few spiritual jades. 100 spiritual jades was considered a heaven-grade spiritual jades. However, the rarer something was, the greater its value. With the rarity of the heart-devouring exquisite grass, 100 spiritual jades for one was practically half selling and half giving away. He probably did not buy it at such a low price. Lin Yi was not in a hurry to answer. He passed the white paper that King of Rags wrote to him to Hong Zhong and said, "Manager Hong, other than the matter of the heart-devouring exquisite grass, the other reason I came here is to buy the items on this list. I wonder if the Chamber of Commerce has them in stock." "Oh. Hero Lin, please wait for a moment. I'll get someone to check." Hong Zhong gestured for Lin Yi to drink his tea and instructed the manservant at the door. After a while, the manservant reported, "Out of the 7 materials, our Chamber of Commerce has only the mysterious droplet in stock at the moment. The price is 649 spiritual jades. We don't have the other 6. Sure enough. Lin Yi had already expected this, so he didn't feel regretful. He immediately said, "Then, pack up this mysterious water drop and the 2 heart-devouring exquisite grass for me. It's a total of 1,000 spirit jades. Is that all right, shopkeeper Hong?" Hong Zhong immediately smiled and waved his hand. "Hero Lin, you must be joking. I know you mean well. However, business is business. Since I said 1 heart-devouring exquisite grass is 100 spiritual jades, I won't charge you half a piece more. Otherwise, where is the integrity of a businessman? If people find out, who would dare to do business with the Hong Chamber of Commerce in the future?" Lin Yi knew he had said something wrong, so he could only say, "All right then. I'll use the extra spiritual jades to buy spiritual medicine. Is that okay?" Lin Yi never liked to owe people favors. Since Hong Zhong was not willing to charge more spiritual jades, he might as well go back and refine some medicinal pills. Next time, he would bring a few top-grade foundation establishment pills for him. At that time, Hong Zhong would definitely be more than happy and would not refuse him like this. Hong Zhong seemed to have seen through Lin Yi's plan. He smiled knowingly and said, "Then I'll thank Hero Lin for your care. If Hero Lin is not in a hurry, I can also get someone to keep an eye on the remaining 6 materials for you. Just like the heart-devouring exquisite grass, after a period of time, you might get something." "Thank you, Manager Hong. However, I heard that there will be an auction on the North Island next month." Lin Yi asked tentatively. Hong Zhong immediately understood and nodded. "Yes, the level of this auction is not low. Hero Lin, you should be able to find the things you want there. Are you interested in going to have a look?" "Yes, I'm just worried about how to get the qualification to enter. I wonder if Manager Hong can help me," Lin Yi said immediately. Hong Zhong could not help but smile and said, "Hero Lin, you don't have to worry. Although the qualification to enter the North Island auction is very rare, and ordinary people can't enter unless they are a powerful force, but fortunately, our Hong Chamber of Commerce is also one of the sponsors of the auction, so we naturally have the qualification to bring extra people to enter. If it's convenient for Hero Lin, how about coming with me?" Lin Yi could not help but be overjoyed. Before coming here, he thought he would have to spend a lot of effort to get the qualification, but he did not expect that Hong Zhong would easily solve it for him with a simple sentence. Things like connections were really priceless at critical times. "Thank you, Manager Hong." Lin Yi said gratefully. Chapter 3976. It had to be said that Hong Zhong's position as the manager of the branch of the Hong Chamber of Commerce was not for nothing. He had done a great favor for others, but he never claimed credit for it. Instead, he spoke of it so casually that it made people feel like they were bathing in the spring breeze. As long as one wasn't an ungrateful person, they would definitely remember such a favor. Moreover, they would remember it willingly and without the slightest bit of discomfort. Over time, they would naturally form a huge and reliable network. The more friends, the more options. This was definitely a golden saying in the cultivation world, and it was even more so for a businessman like Hong Zhong who relied on his connections to make a living. It could only be said that people like Hong Zhong, no matter what they did, would definitely be able to achieve great things in the end. Strength was only one aspect, but his character and wisdom in dealing with people were also indispensable. Many times, it was even more useful than great strength. Lin Yi could not help but deeply feel that being on good terms with a person like Hong Zhong would definitely be of great benefit to his future development. I am already very grateful for your help, Manager Hong. How can I be insatiable and borrow spiritual jades from you? Lin Yi smiled faintly and said, actually, the reason why I brought so many elixir materials back this time is because I'm preparing to start refining elixirs. I'll bring them over and sell them to you, Manager Hong. I believe it should be enough for the auction. That's great. Then I will wait and see young hero Lin's work. Hong Zhong's eyes lit up and he nodded approvingly. After saying goodbye to the Hong Chamber of Commerce, Lin Yi did not stay outside for long and immediately returned home. He could only put aside the matter of forging for the time being. Now that he had two heart-devouring exquisite grasses in his hands, it was naturally more important to first refine the foundation establishment pill. Strictly speaking, it had not been long since Lin Yi advanced to the middle stage of the foundation establishment realm. Before he completely stabilized his strength, even if he had the foundation establishment pill, he would not use it for the time being. After all, haste makes waste, and this would easily cause side effects. Therefore, at least in a short period of time, Lin Yi still didn't need the foundation building pills, but it was better to be prepared. Currently, Lin Yi was only in the middle stage of the foundation building realm, and in the future, he would stay in the foundation building realm for a long time. For him, the more foundation building pills, the better, and there was no reason to complain about having too many. After an uneventful night, Lin Yi was already very familiar with alchemy. With the help of the divine armament cauldron, there were basically no mistakes. This time was the same. Lin Yi had thought that it would at least be the same as last time. After all, these two heart-devouring exquisite grasses were harvested from the wild by others this time. Unlike those cultivated in batches in the spirit medicine nursery, which had congenital defects, the quality of the heart-devouring exquisite grasses was slightly better than the previous one. However, the reality was that only 2 foundation establishment pills were successfully refined in the end. But in the cauldron, Lin Yi found 2 other useless pills, which meant that if everything went smoothly, Lin Yi wouldn't be able to use them. This time, he should have been able to refine 4 foundation building pills in one go, but he didn't expect that half of them would fail prematurely, causing him to sigh helplessly. This was something that couldn't be helped. No alchemist could maintain a 100% success rate. Even with the help of the divine armament cauldron, Lin Yi was no exception. It was inevitable that there would be waste pills. In addition to sighing with regret, he could only helplessly accept the reality. Lin Yi was not greedy. He was already very satisfied that he could refine 2 foundation establishment pills this time. As for whether these 2 pills would be enough for him to reach the peak of the middle stage of foundation establishment in the future, he could only wait until the future. If it was not enough, as long as Hong Zhong and Chen Heihu continued to help him, with the influence of these two people, Lin Yi believed that he would have the opportunity to purchase the heart-devouring exquisite grasses again in the future. As long as he had the heart-devouring exquisite grasses, the foundation establishment pills would naturally not be a problem. However, the waste pills were not completely useless. This waste foundation establishment pill had similar effects as the foundation establishment pill. It could allow people who did not build the foundation to successfully build the foundation, and the effect was better than the foundation establishment pill. After slightly adjusting his state, Lin Yi quickly prepared to refine pills again. This time, he was preparing to refine the foundation establishment barrier breaking pill. Other than keeping a few for his own use, Lin Yi planned to sell most of the foundation establishment barrier breaking pills to the Hong Chamber of Commerce according to the previous agreement. In this way, not only could he return a favor to Hongzhou, but he could also raise a large amount of spirit jade to prepare for the auction, killing two birds with one stone. However, before Lin Yi could reopen the furnace again, the restriction outside the cave house was touched, and Lin Yi had to temporarily stop. Opening the door of the cave house, looking at the familiar old faces in front of him, Lin Yi couldn't help but smile. Hee hee, what kind of wind is blowing today? What can I do for you guys? At this moment, standing in front of the door of the cave house was impressively Su Lingchong, Kong Mingming, and Zhong Pingliang's group. Putting aside Lin Yi's identity, these people in front of him were currently Lin Yi's biggest enemies, especially after he had lost a capable subordinate like Meng Jueguang for nothing. This young master Su Lingchong probably couldn't wait to quickly crush Lin Yi to death. At this moment, he had brought people to publicly knock on the door. What was the meaning of this? No matter what, it was still broad daylight, and some of the alarmed Blue Cloud Pavilion newcomers were still watching from afar. Lin Yi predicted that even if the other party had 10 times the guts, they would definitely not dare to come knocking on his door in this kind of situation. Seeing that not only was Lin Yi not afraid, but instead had a carefree and condescending attitude, Su Lingchong's chest immediately felt stifled. This time, he indeed didn't plan to play hard with Lin Yi, but in the end, he still wanted to put on a show of strength to suppress the scene. It would be best if he could scare Lin Yi to the point of pissing his pants in front of everyone, making him lose all face in front of everyone, and from then on, he wouldn't have the face to see anyone. So, this time, Su Lingchong personally released a strong aura, unreservedly the full circle of foundation establishment. Such a terrifying aura was completely revealed, and if people like Kong Mingming and the others weren't hiding behind him, they would have long been unable to bear the pressure and directly kneel down. However, at this moment, standing in front of him, only 2 steps away from him, Lin Yi, was as calm as the clouds and wind, as if nothing had happened, and this was really out of Su Lingchong's expectations. To be honest, if Lin Yi only had the strength of the early stage of foundation establishment, facing such a strong aura from the other party, there was really a possibility that he wouldn't be able to bear it. However, he was already an out-and-out mid-stage foundation establishment expert, and in addition to his own tenacity, his strength was also far above ordinary experts of the same level. If he couldn't even bear this little bit of aura from the other party, then what the hell was he supposed to do in the future? Chapter 3977. Su Lingchong's face darkened as he was mocked by a newcomer like Lin Yi. Next to him, Kong Mingming quickly jumped out and said, "Consider my ass. You're just a poor rogue cultivator. You're not even qualified to lick young Master Su's toes. How can you be a security guard? Bullshit." Lin Yi laughed. "It doesn't matter if I'm qualified or not. I don't have the hobby of licking other people's toes. But you, Great Deacon Kong, are definitely qualified, right? Otherwise, how could you become someone's follower?" Kong Xiaoming choked and couldn't say anything for a while. Although everyone wanted to lick Master Su's toes, practitioners had their own pride. If he were to say something like that, how would he be able to show his face in the welcome pavilion in the future? Seeing that Great Deacon Kong is so energetic, your injury should be almost healed. Just in time, the 10 days that Pavilion Master who mentioned last time are almost up. Can you quickly vacate your cave abode number 1 on the top of the mountain? I'm still waiting to exchange with the other newcomers of the Rising Sky Pavilion. Lin Yi raised his eyebrows and said. Kong Ming's face suddenly stiffened again. He thought to himself, damn it, this situation is not right. I was obviously following young Master Su to show off. Why did Lin Yi turn the tables with just a few words? In fact, because of his injury, Hu Yunfeng had given him a 4th-grade recover pill. Under the powerful effect of the pill, Kong Ming's injury had almost recovered a few days ago. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to go to Murongzhen, that slut, and make love day and night. These days, Kong Ming had been deliberately putting this matter at the back of his mind. He didn't even greet Su Lingchong, his backer. He didn't expect that Lin Yi would expose it in front of Su Lingchong. How would this end? Sure enough, Su Lingchong immediately looked at Kong Ming suspiciously and asked, Xiao Ming, you want to give him the cave abode number 1 on the top of the mountain? What's going on? Recently, Su Lingchong had been busy competing with the South Heaven Gate for the position of the first senior brother in charge of the Soaring Sky Pavilion. Recently, he had finally made some progress, but immediately, Meng Juiguang's matter appeared. In addition, he had to preside over the Shengguan Laner's birthday party, so he had no time to take care of the small matters in Yingxin Pavilion. In addition, Kong Ming didn't take the initiative to confess to him, and Hu Yunfeng didn't give Kong Ming face, so Su Lingchong didn't know anything about the Interpavilion challenge. Kong Ming stammered, unable to speak for a long time. Lin Yi saw this and chuckled, saying on his behalf, so young Master Su still doesn't know. Great Deacon Kong purposely concealed military intelligence, it's a bit unjustifiable to be a follower. Well, since Great Deacon Kong is too embarrassed to say it, then I will say it for you. Young Master Su, he lost the number 1 cave abode on the mountain top to me during the Cross Pavilion Challenge. According to what Pavilion Lord Hoot said at that time, now that 10 days have passed, he naturally has to give up the cave abode to me. I can't let Pavilion Master Hu go back on his words, right? There's such a thing. Disappointing thing, I'll deal with you when we get back. Su Lingchong's face couldn't help but turn gloomy. It wasn't that he didn't understand why Kong Ming couldn't beat Lin Yi. But the thing that pissed him off the most was that Kong Xiaoming dared to hide it from him. This was intolerable. As a superior, there was one thing that Su Lingchong hated the most. It was his subordinates concealing military intelligence on their own, because this would cause the situation to get out of his control, and it would be very easy to end up like what was happening now. Lin Yi inexplicably took the initiative. Yes, young Master Su, please calm down. I know I'm wrong. Kong Ming quickly nodded and bowed, pretending to be sad as he explained, young Master Su, you have many matters to attend to. I also don't want to trouble young Master Su because of such a small matter. As a younger brother, I can't share young Master Su's worries, but instead, I've caused trouble for young Master Su. I really don't have the face to open this mouth, so no matter how great the grievance is, I can only swallow it first and talk about it in the future. Kong Ming was really a master of acting. At that time, he concealed the information because he had selfish motives and didn't want to lose points in front of his master, but he was made into a tragic character who shouldered all the grievances. Even a smart person like Su Lingchong was stunned by his words. In that case, I've blamed you wrongly. Based on Zhao Ming's rare kindness, I won't blame you. Su Lingchong stretched out his hand and patted Kong Ming's shoulder, comforting him, you're an authentic pill master after all, it's not strange that you can't beat others. As long as you complete the task that I've assigned to you, you'll still have a great merit. Actually, did Su Lingchong really not know what was going on? Actually, not necessarily. It was just that he was better at winning people's hearts than Meng Juiguang. Yes, thank you for young Master Su's understanding. Zhao Ming dares not to give his all. Kong Mingming was moved to tears of gratitude, like a gentleman dying for a bosom friend. Looking at this scene, Lin Yi was secretly speechless. Kong Mingming was indeed an expert at flattering people. His flattery was watertight. Even someone like Su Lingchong fell for it. It seemed that this fellow didn't rely on pure luck to be where he was today. However, in Lin Yi's view, a smart fellow like Su Lingchong shouldn't be so easily deceived by Kong Mingming. Maybe he had the intention to create an image of a broad-minded master so that his subordinates would be more willing to serve him. Hence, he was just taking the opportunity to cooperate with the act. Alright, don't be in such a hurry to act. My question just now, can Great Deacon Kong give me an accurate answer? Lin Yi had a mocking smile on his face as he interrupted them. Kong Mingming was originally feeling complacent, but he immediately became depressed. Once the 10 days were up, the first cave abode on the mountain peak would have to be given to Lin Yi. This was a problem that couldn't be avoided no matter what. However, this cave abode on the mountain peak not only meant superior spiritual energy conditions to Kong Mingming, but more importantly, it was a symbol of status. If Lin Yi occupied the cave abode for his own use, then it was fine. Kong Mingming would at most be embarrassed. However, if he did as Lin Yi said and transferred the cave abode to another Soaring Sky Pavilion newcomer, then not only would he be embarrassed, but his position as the #1 newcomer in Soaring Sky Pavilion would also be threatened. Even Su Lingchong, who was behind him, would be affected. Chapter 3978. With Su Lingchong's status as the heir of the young master, even the slightest damage to his image was extremely likely to be fatal. If it was continuously publicized by people with ulterior motives, no matter how small it would become a huge matter that could even affect whether he could successfully ascend to the position in the future. Su Lingchong understood this point even more deeply than Kong Mingming. He immediately threatened in a deep voice, the #1 abode on the mountain peak, besides Kong Mingming, I won't let it fall into the hands of anyone. No one. Lin Yi, do you want to try? Lin Yi instantly laughed. He wouldn't fall for this trick. He immediately raised his eyebrows and said, as expected of young Master Su. How impressive. Unfortunately, this is the welcome pavilion. Young Master Su, what you say doesn't seem to count. Or is young Master Su going to overstep his authority and help pavilion manager who manage the newcomers under us? Humph, you have a sharp tongue. Su Lingchong glared fiercely at Lin Yi, then suddenly laughed and said, ha ha ha, I was only joking. Young hero Lin, do you need to be so nervous? Just as you said, this is Hu Yunfeng's territory. I naturally won't overstep my authority. That's good. I thought young Master Su wanted to erase the spoils of war that I painstakingly won with just one sentence. If it fell into the ears of the higher-ups, wouldn't it be too inexcusable? Lin Yi faintly smiled without fear. A person like Su Lingchong, who had a deep background and a bright future, was perfect in all aspects to the point of being almost invulnerable. He indeed seemed to be an extremely powerful and terrifying opponent. However, he also had a huge weakness, which was that his ambition was too great. It was precisely because Su Lingchong had great ambition that he had to care about his image. Not to mention sending people to assassinate Lin Yi, even a common small matter like suppressing newcomers couldn't be done because it would damage his glorious image. Otherwise, if he really had no scruples, with the disparity in strength and status, it would be impossible for Lin Yi to deal with him unscathed until today. Su Lingchong's face stiffened. He could only say, "How can I make you give up the #1 abode on the mountain peak?" "Name a price." "You want me to name a price?" Lin Yi smiled meaningfully and said indifferently, "I'm sorry, I've already made an agreement with the other Soaring Sky Pavilion rookies. If I let Great Deacon Kong occupy the first cave mansion at the top of the mountain in the end, wouldn't it damage my reputation?" The meaning behind his words was clearly that he was ready to rip them off. Su Lingchong disdained to argue with Lin Yi, who was a newcomer at the bottom, and he disliked the feeling of being manipulated by others even more. He immediately gave Kong Mingming a look, indicating that he should come forward to solve the problem. After all, he was the one who made the mistake. How could he let Su Lingchong, the boss, personally clean up his mess? Kong Mingming could only bite the bullet and say, "As long as the conditions are right, nothing is impossible." Lin Yi, you should be very clear that the other Soaring Sky Pavilion rookies can't come up with better conditions than mine. Instead of letting those people benefit, it's better for you to benefit yourself, isn't it? Oh. What conditions did Great Deacon Kong prepare for me? Why don't you tell me? Lin Yi said with great interest. Kong Mingming couldn't help but choke again. His weakness had fallen into Lin Yi's hands. He knew that he was definitely going to be ripped off today, and he couldn't escape. He could only say, "People die for wealth, and birds die for food. You just want spiritual jades, right? I'll give you 5 spiritual jades, how about it?" Lin Yi couldn't help but laugh. 5 spiritual jades. The first cave mansion at the top of the mountain is only worth 5 spiritual jades in the eyes of Great Deacon Kong. Let me ask you, are you trying to get rid of a beggar? Then, 10 spiritual jades, that's a lot. Kong Mingming quickly said. Not enough. Lin Yi raised his eyelids indifferently. 20 spiritual jades, not one more. Otherwise, you can go find other people, I want to see how much they can give you. Kong Mingming gritted his teeth and said. Although the first cave mansion at the top of the mountain was good, the 1-year period given to the newcomers had already passed half a year ago. In other words, Kong Mingming's condition was equivalent to exchanging 20 spiritual jades for the right to use the first cave mansion at the top of the mountain for half a year. There was almost no better condition than this in the world. Of course, Kong Mingming was never a person who would suffer a loss for nothing. He dared to bid like this because he had seen the rumor that happened to Lin Yi before. The rumor that Lin Yi couldn't distinguish between good and bad jades, and was constantly being traded for good jades by Meng Tong and the others. The price of 20 good jades was definitely enough to make him die of heartache, but if they were exchanged for 20 bad jades, it would be no problem, and he could get them in minutes. Lin Yi was well aware of this. He sneered in his heart and still said indifferently, Great Deacon Kong, you really are a person of status. You are generous when you open your mouth. Unfortunately, I don't want your 20 spiritual jades at all. What the hell? Kong Mingming almost spat out a mouthful of blood. He looked at Lin Yi with a face of disbelief. What the hell is wrong with this guy's brain? He doesn't want 20 spiritual jades at all. Who the hell do you think you are? Could it be that this guy has already realized my bad intentions? Kong Mingming's heart was beating fast, and he said with a gloomy face, Lin Yi, don't go too far. I advise you not to go too far. Don't go too far. I can't tell that Great Deacon Kong is quite reasonable. Unfortunately, you don't seem to have this awareness. Lin Yi curled his lips mockingly, and Kong Mingming was so embarrassed that his face turned purple. Then, he said, why don't I make it clear? I don't want the spiritual jades, but I want the spiritual herb seeds. As soon as these words came out, not only Kong Mingming, but even Su Lingchong was stunned. Putting 20 spiritual jades together with the spiritual herb seeds, any normal person would know which one to choose. Although the spiritual herb seeds had the hope of survival, unless it was in a professional place like the spiritual medicine nursery, the possibility of survival was very small. For most people, it was basically of little value. However, during the spiritual herb assessment, Lin Yi had once cultivated 39 spiritual herb seeds out of 40. No matter what methods he used, the spiritual herb seeds might really be a money-making machine in his hands. How many spiritual herb seeds do you want? Kong Mingming asked in a low voice. Lin Yi didn't want the spiritual jades, and instead asked for the spiritual herb seeds. To him, it wasn't a bad thing. Anyway, because of Su Lingchong's care, he had recently built a relationship with many people with power in the pill hall. Even if the spiritual flower manager of the spiritual medicine nursery was lukewarm to him because of the previous incident of slandering Lin Yi, if he only wanted to get some spiritual herb seeds, it wouldn't be a problem. Chapter 3979. The value was not high, so naturally, the security would not be too strict. Hence, for people like Kong Mingming who had connections, getting some spiritual medicine seeds was almost a piece of cake. It would be best if he could use them to get rid of Lin Yi. Just like the previous spiritual medicine assessment, 40 spiritual medicine seeds will form a group. Give me 5 groups, Lin Yi said immediately. This was something that Lin Yi had thought about long ago. If he wanted the heart-devouring exquisite grass, other than looking for Hong Zhong and Qin Heihu to help him purchase it, the other way was to get the spiritual medicine nursery's spiritual medicine. It was a pity that he was not a member of the pill hall and did not have any reliable connections. It was obviously impossible for him to rely on himself. On the other hand, Kong Mingming had been doing very well in the pill hall under Su Lingchong's care. It was said that he had even reserved a position in the pill hall in advance. Once the welcoming pavilion was over, he could immediately join the pill hall. It was a good opportunity to get this idea from him. However, it was impossible for Lin Yi to directly ask for the heart-devouring exquisite grass seeds. In order to fool people, he could only do the same as the previous spiritual medicine assessment and ask for all 40 spiritual medicine seeds. Anyway, they could be used as spiritual medicine reserves in the future, so it would not be a waste to ask for more. 40 spiritual medicine seeds a group and you want 5 groups. Are you crazy for the spiritual medicine seeds? Do you think that the pill hall is opened by my family and you can take anything you want? Kong Mingming instantly jumped up. It was true that he had the connections to get the spiritual medicine seeds, but if Lin Yi wanted 5 groups, that would be a total of 200 spiritual medicine seeds. If this was discovered, it would be a big problem. After all, Kong Mingming was not an internal member of the pill hall. Even if others took care of him for Su Lingchong's sake, they would not put themselves in danger just to help him. Lin Yi also knew that this was too unrealistic. However, when it came to transactions, one had to pay the price as high as one could. He immediately said, "Fine, then I will reluctantly take a step back." 4 groups. Impossible. Kong Mingming refused again. It seemed that Lin Yi had taken a step back, but there were still 160 pills in 4 groups, which was not a small number, and the risk was not small. Lin Yi's expression immediately turned cold. He stretched out his hand to send them off and said, "If that's the case, then there's nothing to talk about. Take care. Forgive me for not sending you off." Wait, 3 groups. 3 groups at most. It's impossible to have more than that. Kong Mingming said quickly. In reality, even if the 3rd group had 120 spiritual herb seeds, they still had to take risks. But now that the initiative was in the hands of Lin Yi, there was nothing he could do. Moreover, behind him stood Su Lingchong, his master's backing. This time, Su Lingchong wasn't here to help him clean up his mess. If he didn't agree to Lin Yi's conditions and delayed Su Lingchong's proper business, then it wouldn't be justifiable. 3 groups. Lin Yi pondered for a moment and then said, then I still want the cave dwelling. 4 groups is my bottom line, otherwise there's no need to talk about it. You. Kong Mingming was just about to get angry, but Su Lingchong interrupted him impatiently and said to Lin Yi, okay, I will give you 4 groups. Don't mention this again in the future. No problem. However, I will say the ugly words first. Send them to me before tomorrow's sunset. If you are late or any one of them is missing, this agreement will not be valid. At that time, the number 1 cave dwelling on the top of the mountain will have nothing to do with you, understand? Lin Yi said. It's a deal. Kong Mingming had to bite the bullet and agree. Although the time was a little tight, this matter was easy to handle since Su Lingchong came forward. With Su Lingchong's face, he didn't need to take any risks and he could get back the number 1 cave dwelling on the top of the mountain from Lin Yi. For Kong Mingming, this deal was already very worthwhile. There was no need to continue to dawdle like this. Otherwise, if he angered Lin Yi, he would be finished. Then I will wait for Great Deacon Kang's good news. Lin Yi smiled faintly. 4 groups of elixir seeds meant that there were 4 seeds of the heart-devouring exquisite grass, which was already a rare surprise. At this time, Su Lingchong finally said, since the matter between you 2 is over, then I will talk about the purpose of this time's visit. Lin Yi, I heard that you once saved little junior sister Lon, in the back mountain. Hee, where did young Master Su hear this news? Lin Yi was slightly stunned. Immediately, Lin Yi glanced meaningfully at Murong Jin who was watching from afar. He knew that this matter must have come from the mouth of this woman, and she must have changed her appearance. Otherwise, if she really told the truth, with Su Lingchong's position, it was impossible for him to let this sinister woman who wanted to kill Shangguan Laner go. He would have already killed her with a slap. Su Lingchong pretended to be profound as he smiled complacently. In a place like the 3 great pavilions, as long as I want to know something, it's naturally as easy as flipping my hand. Looking at your performance, it should be true, right? So what? Lin Yi asked noncommittally. Although he had the intention to help Shangguan Laner get rid of the threat of Murong Jin, he had never planned to use Su Lingchong's hand. After all, he still did not know what Shangguan Laner would say about the matter of the Half-Moon Lake. If he said something wrong and was caught by others, that would not be good. Logically speaking, a newcomer like you is not qualified to have any interaction with a high and mighty little princess like little junior sister Lon, However, little junior sister Lon, is a person who values friendship. Because of this matter, she feels that she owes you a favor. Of course, she also helped you in the law enforcement hall last time, so we should be even. Su Lingchong said in a condescending tone. That is also thanks to young Master Su. It seems that this favor will still fall on young Master Su's head in the future. Lin Yi replied with his eyes narrowed. Su Lingchong turned a deaf ear to this and pretended not to hear it. He continued, Lin Yi, remember one thing for me. Little junior sister Lon, is a high and mighty little princess. She is not someone that a small grass root like you can touch. If you want to continue to live well, then stay as far away from her as possible. Do you understand what I mean? Lin Yi smiled ambiguously, then looked at him as if he was looking at an idiot, and said lightly, young Master Su mobilized so many people and came all the way here. Is it just to say this to me? Of course not. In order to cut off your poor and humble fantasy, so that you will not continue to harass little junior sister Lon, with a small favor in the back mountain, I decided to make an exception and send you, a newcomer at the bottom, an invitation. Su Lingchong winked at Kong Mingming, who was next to him. Kong Mingming immediately handed an invitation to Lin Yi. Chapter 3980. Shangguan Laner's birthday was coming soon. This was something she once said to him. Lin Yi was still having a headache about how to sneak in. He did not expect that this problem was actually solved by Su Lingchong, his nemesis. It was simply ridiculous. Yes, it is reasonable to say that a low-level trash like you will not be able to enter such a high-level banquet in your next life. This time, this young master is returning a favor to you on behalf of junior sister Laner. At the same time, I will also let you see clearly the gap between us. How big the gap is, so that you will not be obsessed and entangled. Su Lingchong said disdainfully. With that, Su Lingchong didn't care about Lin Yi's expression and immediately led Kong Xiaoming and the others away with their heads held high. Lin Yi, on the other hand, smiled nonchalantly. He thought about what these people had done today. They'd given him the seeds of the elixir, and now they'd sent him an invitation to the birthday banquet. This was the perfect service. He didn't understand why they were so smug about it. Also, Meng Juiguang and Meng Tong used to have this expression every time they sent him spiritual jades. The IQ of the people on Heaven Stage Island was really low. However, it was no wonder that in the cultivation world of Heaven Stage Island, although there was no lack of intrigue, in the final analysis, it was more dependent on strength. Therefore, it was normal that they were certainly not as smart as the people in the secular world. Because these people were generally thinking about how to cultivate. No wonder Kong Mingming could be put in an important position. Such a mean person, Su Lingchong was afraid that it was the first time he had seen such a person. After the interlude, Lin Yi returned to the cave residence and continued to concentrate on refining the foundation-breaking pill. This time, because the elixir materials were extremely abundant in advance, and Lin Yi had the intention to refine more in exchange for spiritual jades, he refined 3 batches in a row in one breath. Fortunately, it was the Shenong medicine cauldron. If it was replaced by other ordinary alchemy cauldrons, it would have exploded because of Lin Yi's desperate efforts. Shenong medicine cauldron had no other abnormal reaction from beginning to end except that the temperature was slightly higher than usual. Everything was normal. After 3 batches, Lin Yi could be said to have a great harvest this time. A total of 13 foundation-breaking pills were refined, and each of them was of the best quality. If these 13 top-grade foundation establishment barrier-breaking pills were all sold to the Hong Chamber of Commerce, even if they were sold at the lowest price of 800 spiritual jades each, they would still be worth at least 10,000 spiritual jades. That would be more than enough for the auction. Plus, he still had the 1,000-year tree crystal and the bag of blood-red gravel in his hands. He couldn't use them for crafting, but he could sell them if he needed to, and he'd be able to earn a huge sum of money in no time. This time, in order to collect the casting materials mentioned by the King of Junk, Lin Yi could be said to have gone all out. If it was in the past, even if Lin Yi was short of spiritual jades, it would be impossible for him to sell so many best-quality foundation-breaking pills. After all, there was no such thing as an impenetrable wall in the world. Once this matter reached the ears of someone with ulterior motives, it would easily cause trouble, just like the secret of the star inkstone being exposed. However, this time, Lin Yi had no other choice. According to the King of Junk, if he did not have tens of thousands of spiritual jades, even if he was qualified for the auction, it would be difficult to collect the other 6 materials except for the mysterious water droplet. The worst thing was that once he missed this auction, it would be impossible to collect these materials in a short period of time. Fortunately, after so many dealings, Lin Yi had a better understanding of Hong Zhong's character. This person was not a short-sighted person. Even if he was given a lot of best-quality foundation-breaking pills, as long as he was careful not to be discovered by outsiders, it should not be too big of a problem. The next evening, Kong Ming Ming delivered 4 sets of spiritual medicine seeds as promised. Lin Yi carefully counted them, and after confirming that there were 4 heart-devouring exquisite grass seeds among them, he received them with satisfaction. He transplanted all 4 sets of spiritual medicine seeds into the space of the jade pendant. As long as he took care of them carefully, he would be able to harvest 4 heart-devouring exquisite grass in a few months. In addition to the 2 foundation-building pills he had on hand, it should be enough to support the next 2 breakthroughs. Of course, this was just a silly assumption. After all, after asking Hong Zhong and Qin Heihu to help him purchase the foundation-building pills, together with the 4 heart-devouring exquisite grass seeds, the heart-devouring exquisite grass that he needed in the future was guaranteed to a certain extent. Therefore, for Lin Yi, it was not necessary to keep the 2 foundation-building pills for himself. He could not use them in a short period of time, but in the long run, he did not need to worry about the heart-devouring exquisite grass. Therefore, there was no need for Lin Yi to cling on to these 2 best-quality foundation-building pills. They would be more valuable if he used them elsewhere. In the following period of time, Lin Yi could concentrate on his cultivation without any distractions. Apart from occasionally discussing matters related to casting with the King of Junk, there was nothing else to disturb him. Practicing diligently, not caring about stabilizing the strength of the middle stage of foundation-building realm, until he could fully control every bit of strength and every trace of genuine qi in his body, this was what Lin Yi was doing now. Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, it was the 8th day of the Lunar New Year. The birthday banquet of Laner, the first miss of the Sky-Reaching Pavilion, slowly began in the most high-end Huayang house in the Sky-Reaching Pavilion. With the invitation, Lin Yi immediately went to the Sky-Reaching Pavilion. This was the first time that he had entered the core area of the Sky-Reaching Pavilion since he arrived at the Heaven Stage Island, and he did it openly. With the birthday banquet invitation in his hand, he was naturally unimpeded. However, every time he passed through a layer of guards, he would be carefully interrogated. This feeling of being regarded as a thief really made him speechless. There was no other way. After all, he was not an internal member of the Sky-Reaching Pavilion, and he did not have a strong background at first glance. At the entrance of the Huayang house, Su Lingchong, as the organizer of this birthday banquet, stood at the entrance with his hardcore brothers, Lu Tianyu, and others, to welcome the guests. What made Lin Yi quite surprised was that even Kong Ming Ming was among them. Originally, Kong Ming Ming's insignificant status was the same as Lin Yi's. He was not qualified to appear in such a high-end occasion, let alone to stand at the entrance and welcome the guests together with Su Lingchong and Lu Tianyu, the young masters of the Sky-Reaching Pavilion. It should be known that the people who entered the birthday banquet today were either the top management of the 3 pavilions or the real power figures of a certain force. Every one of them was a real big boss. Even if they were to welcome the guests, they would at least be at the level of a young master with a strong background. Ordinary people would not have the opportunity to show their faces in front of these big bosses. The fact that Kong Ming Ming could be among these people could only mean that this guy was really good at flattering. Otherwise, Su Lingchong would not have supported him so much. Chapter 3981. Lin Yi was about to enter when he suddenly felt an overbearing and powerful aura behind him. Turning his head to look, he saw that the person who came into view was the current law enforcement hall master, Ram Jia, whom he had met once before. In this kind of gathering of dignitaries, most people would consciously restrain their aura, lest they accidentally arouse the dissatisfaction of some big shot, which would then cause unnecessary trouble. But the most popular young powerhouse of the 3 great pavilions in front of him did not have the slightest intention of doing so. He did what he wanted and did not care about others. However, even if he did not restrain himself, from beginning to end, no one around him was dissatisfied. Instead, they even took the initiative to nod to him. Among them, there was no lack of elders from the three great pavilions. Lin Yi's heart could not help but tremble. Breaking the norm with his own strength, and making everyone around him accustomed to it without any gossip, it could be imagined how strong the strength behind this was. This Ram Jia was really not to be trifled with. Along the way, wherever Ram Jia passed, everyone retreated to make way for him. No one had the guts to block in front of him, until it was Lin Yi's turn. Even without turning his head, Lin Yi could clearly feel that an incomparably cold and overbearing aura was right behind him, very close at hand, only one step away. For a moment, all eyes were focused on Lin Yi. Who is this person? He looks unfamiliar. I've never seen him before. Could he be the nephew of one of the elders? Someone in the crowd whispered. To be qualified to attend Miss Shangwan's birthday banquet, he was naturally someone with a powerful background. It was normal for them to guess so. Hey, no matter which family's young master this person is, he dares to block in front of Hall Master Ram. I can only say to him that the ignorant are fearless. Yes, this person probably doesn't even recognize Hall Master Ram. He doesn't even know the taboo. How pitiful. Wherever I go, no one will be able to stop me. These are words personally spoken by Lord Gongyang. Even the upper echelons of the Elder Council will deliberately cooperate with him. This brat is so insensible. He's going to be in big trouble today. The people at the side discussed with Schadenfreude, and all of them looked like they were waiting to watch a good show. With Lin Yi's keen senses, although these discussions were intentionally suppressed, he was still able to sense them. But it still couldn't escape his eyes and ears. In a place like this, it wasn't wise to offend a powerful figure like Ram Jia for such an inexplicable small matter. However, just as Lin Yi was about to move aside like everyone else, Su Lingchong, who was in front, suddenly said, "Yo, isn't this the strongest newcomer in the history of Blue Cloud Pavilion?" Lin Yi, it's really an honor for me and little junior sister Lan that you're willing to do us the honor of attending our birthday party. Come this way please. His words caused an uproar in the audience, including Ram Jia, who was standing behind Lin Yi. They also stopped in their tracks. The strongest newcomer in the history of Blue Cloud Pavilion, isn't that miracle Dr. Dan St. Jean Li Ju? Since when was it this bullshit Lin Yi's turn? Yeah, but I heard that this Lin Yi seems to be from the common world like Grandmaster Zhang Li Ju. It seems like he's someone who came from the common world like Grandmaster Zhang Li Ju, and he's pretty famous in the pavilion. Bullshit. He's just a grassroots newcomer with some insignificant strength. How can he be so arrogant? Does he think that he can become the next Grandmaster Zhang just by stepping on some dog shit? He's the only one in tens of thousands of years, how can he be so arrogant? Just because of Su Lingchong's words, everyone's voices rose one after another, and they instantly put Lin Yi on the stake. Not only did he become the target of everyone, but he was also in a dilemma. This guy really was evil. Lin Yi couldn't help but look at Su Lingchong deeply. The reason why he suddenly said this was obvious. No matter how bad the people around him were, they were still inner disciples of Soaring Sky Pavilion, and each of them had a strong background. Even they might not have the right to attend Miss Shangwan's birthday banquet, and now they suddenly found out that a grassroots newcomer like Lin Yi was able to attend. It would be strange if he didn't become the target of everyone. Other than being talked about and looked down on, there was another problem in front of Lin Yi, and that was Ram Jia who was behind him. If Su Lingchong hadn't said that, Lin Yi would have just stepped aside. After all, it was the same for everyone else. But after Su Lingchong's words of praise and mockery, the situation was completely different. Choosing to step back now was no longer something that could be ignored. It could only mean one thing. In front of Ram Jia, in front of everyone, Lin Yi voluntarily gave up. Lin Yi didn't care, but he was here for Shangguan. If he gave up now, perhaps Shangguan would lose face. Therefore, Lin Yi was in a dilemma. However, if he didn't step back, he was likely to offend the high and mighty law enforcement hall master, Ram Jia, behind him. After all, he once swore that, "No one can stop me wherever I go." Just by looking at his courageous spirit, one could tell what kind of Taoist heart he held. Even the elders of the three pavilions had to tolerate him, let alone a grassroots newcomer like Lin Yi. If he didn't step back, he would offend Ram Jia. If he stepped back, he might make Shangguan lose face. This was Lin Yi's current situation. Today's birthday banquet was indeed a dragon's pool and a tiger's den. He had just arrived and he had already encountered such a difficult problem. Under everyone's gaze, Lin Yi suddenly moved. However, what caused everyone to be in an uproar was that he actually had the guts not to step back. Instead, he walked straight to Su Lingchong and the others, took out the invitation letter and said indifferently, "Young Master Su, can I go in now?" "Ha!" Su Lingchong was stunned. He had never thought that Lin Yi would have such a reaction. Or rather, he had never thought that Lin Yi would have such guts. If he were in Lin Yi's shoes, even young Master Su, who had a strong background, would not dare to block in front of Ram Jia. What he had said just now was just to make Lin Yi look bad. He had never thought that this guy would be stupid enough to directly make the stupidest choice. It was so stupid that it made people run with joy. In the face of such a pleasant surprise, Su Lingchong naturally couldn't ask for more. He looked at Lu Tianyu and Kong Mingming, then secretly glanced at Ram Jia's expression. Chapter 3982. This young Master Su changed his attitude really quickly. Everyone was speechless. Just now, it was clearly his words that forced this Lin Yi into a dilemma, and now he was using the hierarchy to teach people a lesson. He was really mean and shameless. However, everyone was just watching the show. All of them were already unhappy with Lin Yi, so of course, they couldn't jump out and speak up for justice at this time. They even hoped that Lin Yi would be trampled to death by Ram Jia, a typical case of watching a good show. Lin Yi smiled faintly. "Ha! Did I hear wrongly just now? Could it be that the one who called me in wasn't young Master Su, but some guard dog that doesn't know the rules? Or could it be that the invitation that young Master Su personally delivered to my doorstep is fake, and I actually don't have the qualifications to enter and was just played by you?" Su Lingchong was instantly speechless. Making things difficult for Lin Yi was just an idea that came to his mind on the spur of the moment. He originally thought that in front of Ram Jia's overbearing power, trash like Lin Yi would definitely be scared shitless. Who would have thought that this guy didn't have the slightest bit of fear, and actually had the mood to beat around the bush and insult him? Logically, Lin Yi indeed didn't have any wrongdoing. Although the three great pavilions paid attention to the hierarchy, at the same time, there was the rule of first come, first served. Other people making way for Ram Jia was their own consciousness, and they were afraid of Ram Jia, but it didn't mean that everyone had to do so. After a long time, Su Lingchong sneered with a gloomy face, but he didn't speak. As long as he didn't speak, the guards wouldn't let Lin Yi enter, and this was the effect he wanted to achieve. No matter how sharp Lin Yi's mouth was, so what? He, young Master Su, didn't need to speak at all. As long as he blocked the person here, Ram Jia would naturally come out to deal with Lin Yi. As expected, Ram Jia spoke very quickly, and the first thing he said shocked everyone. "You're Lin Yi." Not only the people present, but even Lin Yi himself was a little surprised. He had only met Ram Jia once. They had not even met once. After all, during the coercion resistance test in the law enforcement hall, Lin Yi had only stood in the crowd and glanced at Ram Jia from afar. However, Ram Jia had not paid any attention to a nobody like Lin Yi. However, Ram Jia's words clearly meant that he had at least heard of the existence of Lin Yi, which was an incredible thing in anyone's eyes. After thinking about it, Lin Yi felt that the reason why the other party had heard of him was because of the other party. The only possibility was that when Shanghai Laner came to the law enforcement hall to help him out, she had attracted the attention of the other party. "Yes, I'm Lin Yi. Nice to meet you, Hall Master Ram." Lin Yi turned around and cupped his hands. Ram Jia looked Lin Yi up and down carefully, which made people look at each other in dismay. The arrogance of the Hall Master of the Law Enforcement Hall was well known in the North Island. Even if the elders of the three great pavilions were standing opposite him, he did not even bother to look at them. What on earth was Lin Yi capable of making Ram Jia look at him so differently? After a while, Ram Jia spoke slowly, with an unquestionable domineering and strong tone. "If it were someone else, they would have been dead by now. Those who dared to block my path are already dead, but you, Lin Yi, can let them off the hook." For a while, the audience was in an uproar again, and even Lin Yi himself was shocked inexplicably. With Ram Jia's arrogance, he never lied. To be precise, he never disdained to lie in front of anyone. If he said he wanted to kill someone, then even if this was Shanghai Laner's birthday party, and even if the masters of the three great pavilions were present, they could not stop him at all. However, he was especially lenient to Lin Yi in public. What was going on? Lin Yi himself was a little confused. He had no friendship with Ram Jia. Why did he make Ram Jia treat him differently? You'd better not misunderstand what I mean. I have an old acquaintance who is indebted to you for taking care of him, so I'm giving him face. As for you, you're nothing more than an ant. You're not even worthy of my attention." Gong Yangjia gave a rare explanation. His disdain for Lin Yi came from the arrogance in his bones. He did not hide it at all, and there was no need to hide it at all. With the current gap in strength between them, Lin Yi was the same as everyone else present. In his eyes, Lin Yi was just an insignificant ant, without the slightest weight, let alone any status to speak of. This feeling of being looked down upon from above, even with Lin Yi's indifferent temperament, gave birth to a rare trace of displeasure, but he did not show it on his face. "In that case, I have to thank that friend." Lin Yi smiled calmly. The friend he mentioned was naturally Shanghai Laner. After all, from Ram Jia's words, it was not difficult to infer that he deliberately let him go for the sake of Shanghai Laner. This kind of thing was not surprising. Looking at the whole three pavilions in the North Island, Shanghai Tianhua was the only one who could make Ram Jia bow his head. As the only granddaughter of Shanghai Tianhua, Shanghai Laner naturally had a lot of weight in Ram Jia's eyes. The fact that Shanghai Laner could successfully bring Lin Yi out of the law enforcement hall last time was proof. As for the relationship between Lin Yi and Sheng Wanlan, although he had been purposely hiding it from Su Lingchong and the others, if this Gong Yangjie in front of him wanted to know something, there was no way to hide it. Chapter 3983. Please go ahead. Su Lingchong had to signal Lu Tianyu and the others to let him pass. His eyes were full of mockery. Anyway, the show had just begun. The entire birthday party was arranged by him. It was easy for him to punish Lin Yi. There would be plenty of opportunities later. After letting Lin Yi go in with a sneer, Su Lingchong and the others immediately bowed to Ram Jia, who followed closely behind. His face was full of joy. "Hall leader Ram, please come in." Entering the interior of Huayong House, the originally magnificent hall became even more dreamy and fantasy-like because every place was carefully decorated, as if it were a paradise of immortals. At this moment, although many of the top big shots had not yet appeared, there were many people who had arrived in advance. They exchanged greetings and made friends with each other. Those who could come here today were not ordinary people. Now was the best opportunity to expand their social network. However, Lin Yi obviously did not have this kind of idea. After looking around casually, he did not find Shanghai Laner, the main character of the birthday party. So he found a secluded corner and sat down. He drank the high-grade spirit tea provided for free at the birthday party. He was quite comfortable. Different from Lin Yi, who was ignored, Ram Jia, who followed closely behind, immediately became the focus of the audience. However, because he was too famous and arrogant, everyone in the audience was in awe of him. No one dared to go up and strike up a conversation with him. Looking around, Ram Jia's subsequent action made Lin Yi's eyelids twitch. This person actually walked directly in his direction. Then, without saying anything, he directly sat down on the seat opposite Lin Yi. What did this person want to do? Lin Yi could not help but secretly speculate. However, after the other person sat down, he did not take any further action. He just reclined on the spacious chair lazily and coldly looked at the people and things in the venue at the moment. Lin Yi quietly looked at the other person. Seeing that he did not move, he immediately ignored him and still sat there with his arms crossed. His expression was relaxed and calm. The two of them sat across from each other. Because of Ram Jia, almost everyone in the audience couldn't help but glance at them before silently withdrawing their gazes. If they looked for too long, they were afraid that Ram Jia would be displeased. After a while, Ram Jia suddenly spoke, "What's your relationship with Zhang Liju?" Lin Yi was taken aback for a moment, then replied with his usual expression, "Hall Master Gong Yang must be joking. Master Zhang is the top big shot of Middle Island, and I'm just a grassroots newcomer. How is it possible for you to be related to him?" Unexpectedly, Ram Jia said directly, "You're lying." Lin Yi was speechless. He was indeed lying, but even Zhang Liju himself didn't know about his relationship with Zhang Liju, and he never told anyone about it. How could this Ram Jia know? First, you and Zhang Liju are both from the common world. Second, you and Zhang Liju are both elixir refiners. Third, after coming to Sky Class Island, you've been asking around for information about Zhang Liju many times, and you're saying that it's not a problem. Ram Jia laid on his side with one hand under his chin, looking at Lin Yi from the corner of his eyes. Lin Yi was shocked. He never thought that a mere grassroots newbie like him would be investigated so thoroughly by the high and mighty Hall Master of the Law Enforcement Hall. He was really overwhelmed by the favor. Lying in front of me. It's meaningless. Ram Jia didn't know why he was so talkative. He lazily pointed at his head. All the information about the Hall of Law is reflected in my head. If necessary, I can use the soul-searching technique at any time. Do you want to try? Nope. What do you want from me, Hall Master Gong Yang? Just say it. Lin Yi said in a low voice. Ha! Gong Yang Jia immediately laughed. Little brat, don't make people laugh anymore. Why would I look for an ant-like newbie like you? It's just to relieve boredom. Don't worry, I'm not bored enough to use the soul-searching technique on you. I'm just curious about your relationship with Zhang Liju. Lin Yi kept quiet for a while and said faintly, I have nothing to do with Master Zhang Liju. If I must say there is, then I'd say that I'm looking for Master Zhang to help me save someone. Save those inheritors in the common world. I didn't know that you were such an affectionate person. It's fine. If you meet Zhang Liju, please pass a message for me. Speaking up to here, Gong Yangjia's eyes suddenly became a bit cold, like a knife scraping across one's skin, causing one's hair to stand on end. Tell him that this king will return the humiliation of that defeat 100-fold. Tell him not to worry, that day will not be too far away. All right. Lin Yi's face didn't change, but his heart was in turmoil. This was the first time he heard that Ram Jia had fought with Zhang Liju before. With Zhang Liju's legendary experience, it was normal for someone as strong as Ram Jia to lose to him. However, what shocked Lin Yi even more was that Ram Jia had the confidence to take revenge against Zhang Liju, who was one of the top bosses in Zhongdao. Just how strong was he? Thinking about it carefully, although Lin Yi couldn't tell how strong or weak Gong Yangjie was, he could tell from the way Gong Yangjie treated the higher-ups of the Elders Guild that this person was definitely not to be underestimated. His strength was probably far above that of a normal elder. A person like this was called the number one in the new generation of the three pavilions. As the two were talking, Lin Yi suddenly saw a few people coming in from the corner of his eye. They were all familiar faces that he didn't want to see the most. The three of them, Yuzha at the back, followed by Southern Sky Gate, and at the front was a middle-aged man who looked extremely handsome. It was the leader of the three Nan brothers, Nan Tianba. Along the way, Southern Sky Gate whispered, "Boss, did you see the kid next to Su Lingchong? That's Kong Mingming. I'm starting to suspect that he's that Lin heir." Yuzha, who was behind him, followed up, "This disciple feels the same way. If Kong Xiaoming didn't give Su Lingchong something as precious as the Star Ink Stone, would Su Lingchong support him so much just because he's just a newbie? Would he even bring him out to welcome guests?" Strictly speaking, even an inner disciple like Yuzha with an ordinary background wasn't qualified to welcome guests at Miss Shangwan's birthday banquet, let alone a mere Kong Mingming. Yuzha was jealous. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.